Just tell me if people can hear us.
It still says waiting for me.
Yes, me too.
I think we're good. Yes, maybe.
Refresh it again.
I don't hear nothing coming from the video tab.
Are you sure?
Oh yes, it's on.
It might take a little bit.
It's on.
I think it's a little bit behind.
We're live.
Okay, cool.
We're live.
Oh, there we go.
Just to make sure,
I need to not
can
swear.
people hear me? Because the last time we streamed, my voice did not come through for like the first 2 minutes. Technical difficulties.
Wow. Okay, so that
Always.
we're out of sync.
Oh God, that's how I sound.
Okay, so I think we're good. Anyways, welcome everyone to the anniversary podcast. Can you believe that it has been a whole year since we started this? I don't think any of us could have imagined that we would be going on for this long, but you know what? It's great that we're all able to continue doing this and hopefully have more in the future. If you could not tell, maybe not because everybody changed their profile pics since the last time. Or at least a good chunk of you. But we brought back several of our old podcast members to, I guess, commemorate this joyous occasion of doing this for a whole year. We're going to introduce ourselves again for those who are not familiar with our podcast series. Hello, my name is BluechanXD. I am the host. I am a writer over on both ASMR Script Haven as well as Talking Tall Tales. I will not actually be answering questions this time around, just because for time constraints and because we have 7 guests this time around. But I hope that they have some very interesting answers going forward. Our first person, actually, we're going to be going in alphabetical order. The first person on our list is Fuyuki, who joined us for podcast 2. Hello, Fuyuki. Please tell us how you've been doing since last time.
I think I've been doing pretty good. I don't remember what I was doing the last time that I was on the podcast, but I can only assume my channel was probably a lot smaller than it is now. So I think there's been a lot of changes in my understanding of how to be a voice actor on YouTube, both in terms of how to create good content, how to market it, and really establishing a community. So I think I've learned a lot since the last podcast.
Well, that is good to hear. We actually have a question about that a little later, but we'll get to that eventually. Next person is a writer who came on podcast 3, GoldenProxy. Please tell us how you've been doing since last time.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. So, like Bluechan said, I'm GoldenProxy, a script writer. I've been doing fine, really. I can't remember how many scripts I'd posted the last time I was on here, but I've posted like 170 now in total, or just over that. So I guess that's pretty good. But yeah, I'm doing fine.
That's very good to hear. Our next person up is actually the amazing creator of the Talking Tall Tales Reddit or subreddit. Please, Esme, please tell us about how you've been doing since last time you came on. You were from podcast 2 also.
I was. Hi, everyone. It's ItsEsmeJones. I've been doing script writing for a couple of years now, and I guess since the last time you guys saw me, Talking Tall Tales was created. I'm working on 2 books for 2 series that a bunch of VAs are kind of familiar with, one of which Fuyuki's actually a filled, so that's exciting. And I got my publisher certification, so hype. Happy to be back. Thank you for having me.
That is amazing. Amazing to hear. Very glad to hear that things have been going well. Our next person on the list is another person, is actually the first person on our list here that joined us all the way back in podcast 1. Man of Culture, please tell us how you've been doing.
Hello. I've actually been doing really good. My channel's probably grown since the last podcast, and I'm having a good time. I recently started writing, so I've been doing a lot of my own scripts, and it's been a pretty cool journey. Yeah, I like what's going on with my channel. Hi.
Well, we're glad to have you back once again. It's been a very long time. And next up, we have our other VA here, Miss Fluster Bunny, who was also here on Podcast 2. We have a lot of people from Podcast 2 this time around. So please tell us how you've been doing.
Oh,
Also, I think
Apparently,
okay.
my apparently my keybind for a microphone
That's
isn't
fine.
working. Hello, I am sick, so if I don't sound correct, that's why. Hi, I've been doing okay. I have just been not as active as I used to be for a host of personal reasons. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. But yeah, that's me.
Hopefully doesn't get too bad. We'll try not to make this go on for too long so you can rest.
Yeah, I also work the graveyard shift. So I've been up
So-
since last night.
Okay. We'll try to get through things pretty quickly. But next up, another person who has been with us on both Podcast 1 as well as Podcast 3, if I'm remembering correctly. Not. Please tell us how you've been doing since last time.
Well, it's been quite a while since last time, so I think I've been on hiatus twice since then. I recently crossed 360 videos and 25,000 subscribers, so quite a bit's changed. I also tried my hand at music, more script writing, a bunch of other side projects if people know where to look. Yes, quite the exciting adventure.
Well, we are glad to have you back. And of course, last but certainly not least, we have another person from Podcast 2, Timeraft. Please tell us how you've been doing since last time.
Nothing really new to report there. Just kind of doing what I've been doing.
Same old, I guess, right? Well, again, thank you all for coming. Again, it's a little bit inconvenient sometimes, and I know that some of us have to leave a little bit early, but we'll let you know when that happens. We're gonna try to get through as many questions as possible before anyone has to leave. We have several that we're going to be going through, and unfortunately, we cannot be answering questions that are asked in the chat. We already have a list that we've compiled just for time purposes. We're going to stick to what we have on our list. So without further ado, I do have the randomizer this time. It took me a while to find it, but I got it. And let me bring up our first question. These are actually going to be from me. So our first question is going to be for our writers. Do you have any advice on simplifying the audio making process / making accommodations for VAs? So things like linking old parts of series to newer ones or providing pronunciation guides. There's different things you could possibly do, but I'd like to hear from our writers what you would do. So our first person is GoldenProxy.
Oh, okay. So I thought this was a really good question, BlueChan. And it's a shame because I don't really have a very good answer for it. What I kind of tend to do is, like you said in the examples, I always try and include links to previous parts of a series. So in case someone's missed the first few, they can go back and access them. I also do if there's like some weird like made up word I've included or something in like a sci-fi script or a fantasy script or something, or even if it's like for a character's name, I do have like a little pronunciation right next to the word just so people know how to say it. One of my early scripts was like a Lovecraftian eldritch horror script, and I didn't include pronunciation tips for some of the alien names in it. And listening to some of the fills, people did pronounce them wrong, so that was kind of the lesson I learned from it.
Unfortunate, but we try, you know.
Yeah, we do what we can.
Also, I think that was a good enough answer. Golden Proxy, it's fine. So our next person on the list is going to be Timeraft.
Yeah, I'm kind of with them. If it's important to you how something is pronounced, honestly, personally, I like making up a word and then seeing it pronounced like 12 different ways. I think that's kind of fun. But
if it's important to you how it's pronounced, you need to include a pronunciation guide, because the way things sound in your head isn't the way it's going to get sounded when they read it. And yeah, like if you're going to write a series, you definitely need to, like, in each section of the series, you need to have a link to all the other parts. I don't always do that, but if you want somebody to fill the whole thing, that's the only way they're going to know that it's a series, unless they're like following you or something.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of Reddit. I was actually going to ask a question for the writers about how Reddit kind of sucks, or like if you all think Reddit kind of sucks with the search process for VAs. And I'm like, I feel like that's just a universal yes, probably. Like, I don't like how Reddit works, honestly. But anyways.
Yeah.
Can I
It's very
slide in
clunky
really
and it's not
quick?
really.
Yes, go ahead.
I was very recently tagged in the part 2 of a script that I didn't think was gonna get a part 2, and that was incredibly helpful because I wouldn't have realized for months if it didn't happen.
That's the beauty or not so beauty of Reddit. But oh well.
Yeah, if you know somebody's doing a series, like, just DM them when you post the next part.
If they're
Were you
interested,
tagged by
yes.
were you tagged by the writer, Miss Flusterbunny?
The problem with tagging on Reddit is that I think it limits it to 2 tags
Okay.
or something
I think
like
I
that.
was
It's really
tagged in the
weird.
comments on the
Yeah,
post.
you could technically tag like several people in the comments, but you have to make several comments. Otherwise, it's not going to tag everybody.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how many VAs filled your original script.
Yeah,
I think
so
a
just
DM
hope
works
that
better
they-
because it's
Yeah, I think that's probably the
It's
best way
also
to
not
just go
public.
and yeah. Or, sorry about that. Anyways, so let us move on. Actually, to not actually.
Well, let's see. Advice for simplifying the audio making process or making accommodations. Quite a few. One, master lists help tremendously. So I certainly recommend creating one of those and sharing it around wherever you can. Another thing that I would say is sound effects, sound effects, sound effects. 2 comments on it. First, the more sound effects you are, the longer it might take your script to get filled, because sound design is a whole art in itself. Second, with sound effects, try to make them things that are easily audible. Louder sounds are a bit easier for folks to find. And try to be a bit clear in what those sounds are and why they're there. Sometimes I'll come across sounds that don't actually explain why they're present. So I always try to provide a little bit of additional context when I can. And I think, finally, I would suggest putting in notes. So one of the actually nice things about scripts is that you can add notes wherever you like. I often like to have a little bit more information up in the beginning of the script, providing a bit of background, maybe a bit of context, sometimes a disclaimer or a warning about things to come. That, I think, helps quite a bit.
You do bring up a very good point. I actually like, going back to the sound effects thing, something I actually like to do is post several different options for sound effects. And I've heard from some other writers that they'll actually put links to specific sound effects just to make it a little bit easier for their VAs. So that is an option for people to work with. Our next up is Fuyuki. I know that it's mostly whenever you write, it's more for you, but I guess maybe the better question for you would be what types of, I guess, means of simplifying scripts would you prefer as a VA, but you can answer it however you would like.
I think that what would make a script easier to fill, or at least more attractive to fill, in my case, would be having more directive on the characters themselves or the storyline itself. I think from a voice actor perspective, the idea is that you're trying to fit yourself in that perspective of the character, right? So if I see a character that I think I can really emulate or one that I relate to, in a script, that makes it more attractive in terms of wanting to fill it. I also think that with sound design, as not mentioned, it's so multifaceted. There's so many different aspects that you have to learn and you'll have to apply if you're really doing the editing yourself. So sometimes, depending on what you're feeling, it might be easier to do a script that doesn't have as many sound effects. So, making that whenever you're writing, keeping that in mind, I think is particularly significant. I've seen some scripts that have some crazy sound effects noted, and I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to figure out I can do that. And that sometimes can really just demolish any idea of wanting to fill that script.
And I guess that sort of goes back to what Not was saying, just having that description there for what's actually happening might be more helpful sometimes than the actual sound effect itself. But yes, thank you so much for that. It's nice to hear that insight from people who also are VAs and what they would like to see as well. And of course, last but certainly not least, we have Esme.
Sure. So I'll just bring up what everyone said. Previous parts are a must if you're in a series. I have a document that I always post as well that's my script directory. It's just kind of a Excel spreadsheet with everything that my fiance helps me manage, bless him for it. So I would always include like a master list, previous series parts, any trigger warnings or general content warnings in your tags. With sound effects, I try to either do a lot of research, because what I'll do is I'll act out most of my own scripts, record them, and then immediately delete them afterwards to kind of get a feel for acting it out. And then I'll work in kind of what the scene sounded like to me. Wouldn't recommend going that far for folks, but it's definitely helped me kind of get a better idea of what the more physical side of scene writing kind of sounds like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that far personally, but I mean, if it works for you. Some of us are just like, you know what? I don't want to hear my own voice.
I mean, I hate it. That's why I delete them.
But hey, if you're able to go the extra mile, I mean, you have the upvotes to prove that for how much effort you've put into your scripts.
Thank you.
From the VAs who write their own material, I have heard the wildest shit of how they write their scripts. From, oh, I just make an improv script. I make an improv audio and then I write out my improv and I'm like, why? That's so hard.
Whatever works for people,
I guess, but how?
I'm always impressed by improv, honestly. Like, just how are you able to do this so naturally? It sounds like an actual conversation. My gosh, but yeah, you people who do improv, I'm very impressed by you.
It's called being a theater kid as a child.
Alrighty, let us move on to our next question. This one's going to be for our VAs. In a community where public scripts are often reused, what do you think sets a VA apart from others? Is there anything you do that you believe sets you apart from your fellow VAs? The first person is Man of Culture.
Well, there are a few things that I've seen set VAs apart. A lot of it is thumbnail art. I don't know if you've noticed, but on my channel in particular, for years now, I've basically been changing up my style. I've been trying to go for branding mostly. It's also really nice when you find a VA that writes their own scripts, because you're never going to find that anywhere else. But I think every VA has their own unique take on a script. Like, I've seen tons of people do the what was it? It was the Yandere Insane Asylum one. And you can look at multiple different takes, and you could just tell the different styles and the way that they interpreted the character. Other than that, I guess setting yourself apart is mostly branding, editing quality. It's basically your own style, I guess. I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's kind of what
Yeah, I think it
thought
did.
of.
Yeah. Honestly, like having the specific brand. I mean, there's a lot of times where you'll see a specific thumbnail type, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know who that is, right? So I think that does help. So our next person is not.
Well, I actually have a pretty simple opinion on this, and that is that scripts are actually a lot like recipes. They tell you what to do, but they don't tell you exactly how to do every little step. So a VA is sort of like the cook, coming in, applying their own personal knowledge and talents to try to bring out the best of it. And that, I think, is what really sets apart each individual script fill. Uh, in terms of things I personally do, I'm trying to worry about it. I really think that focusing on trying to make your fill unique sometimes backfires. It just is really difficult to do because you have no idea who else has done it. Oftentimes, one of the things I like to do is actually go in blind. So I will look at the script, I will avoid looking at other people's script fills, and then I'll just do whatever comes to my mind. Sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 different takes in different ways, and I'll just pick whichever one seems the most fun. That, I think, is a way to sort of set yourself apart because you're really bringing out your own personal creative vision as much as you possibly can.
That's actually a pretty good point. I mean, I've never really thought about it specifically in a way. Like you can also sort of apply this to writers where if you read somebody else's script, some people get specific lines or ideas. I always joke about the yandere thing where every other script has the same lines where it's like, oh, you're finally awake now. And some people just, I guess, pick up on those things that other writers do. So you could kind of apply that to VAs as well. So that's kind of an interesting take, I think. So our next person up is Bun.
Hi. I agree with not. I refuse to listen to other people's fills of a script until I have done my own. The 1 or 2 times that I have seen a video from a creator that I personally follow, and then oh god, I need to blow my nose just a sec.
No worries.
The few times I have seen a video from a creator that I personally follow and then see the script later, if I have tried to fill that, I feel like I am mimicking. So I refuse to listen to any script fills before before I fill it myself. And honestly, if the scriptwriter has specific um sound effects, like they have the link to the sound effect, I don't use it. I will use that as inspo for finding my own sound effect, but I make sure that I use my own because I feel like the SFX really do help set everything apart.
That's actually kind of an interesting
And
layer because we just said, hey, people please post your things to
like,
sound
be
effects.
specific about what kind of sound effect you want, but for me personally, especially if I know that other people have filled it, I will not use the same sound effect.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also kind of comes back to this where, how do you set yourself apart? Like, what if everybody uses the same sound effect, right? But it is
Yeah,
nice,
exactly.
I think it is nice to at least have something there for people to go off of if they really needed it.
Yes. And again, I do my branding. I have a specific style of thumbnail that I use, mostly to make my life easier, but partially because if you look at that thumbnail, you're like, "Oh, it's a Miss Fluster Bunny video." You don't even have to look at the creator or the title. We're good. Um, One thing related to this that I have noticed is I will have some people in my comments being like, hey, you stole this video from blah 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 blah." And I'm like, believe it or not, no.
The eternal
So
dilemma.
I've seen this a few
Always,
times.
it
I just got
happens
really
a
bad on
lot.
it.
Yeah.
I was
I
just like,
have to
no,
correct so many people.
So many
totally
people don't
didn't.
realize that there's
I
public
I
scripts out there.
like I'm like, "Hey, you probably don't know this, but this is why." But if I get somebody being like, in my comments being like, this kind of sounds like somebody else's, but they're not like, you stole this. I know I have done my job right.
Unfortunately, even when people post in the thumbnails, I've noticed this too. People say this still. I'm like, do you guys not see like what's on screen right now?
Did you not see script by
person. Every time.
Please don't make me put a disclaimer in the top line of the description.
Sometimes I'm just like, voice it at the beginning of the audio. It's like, this script was written by, and the people are still gonna say it.
This script was written by a different person. Please leave me alone.
Alrighty, so let us move on. Our next person, actually the last person on here, is Fuyuki.
So I'm probably gonna do like a 180 compared to everybody else, but like I think it's important to listen to other people's fills personally. I think whenever I'm considering a script, in my case, I'm always looking at, okay, who are the other creators out there that have done it? Now, this I think is more important now than it was before, particularly because YouTube is being a lot more aggressive with what they would deem as reuse of content. So maybe you run into it, maybe you haven't, but sometimes there have been several different creators who have been kicked out of the partner program for reuse content simply by filling scripts that others have already done. Now, if YouTube's going to change that, who knows? That's to be seen. But that's one thing to be cautious of. The other thing that I think is important, at least my method when I look at scripts, is I'm always thinking, okay, who else has done this? And this might sound like aggressive, but my approach to it is usually, can I do this better? If I'm listening to a fill, I'm thinking, okay, that kind of had some spice to it. What else could I add to this to make this a little bit better? So whenever I'm thinking of improving or creating, I'm always thinking about, this has already been done, so what can I add to it that would make this a lot better? So not necessarily critiquing, but always considering and looking at what's already there. I think that is an important approach to go about. I think in terms of thinking about how you can make your audios, stand out, be a little bit different. Usually when I'm doing longer series, I tend to approach it as like a big project, and I try to work with an actual sound designer, and I'm thinking, okay, let's try to up the quality times 10. This person already filled it. It was nice, but I want to do this, but do it like 10 times better. And so usually that's my approach when I'm trying to stand out, or if there's a project that I want to do that I think somebody maybe already did, how can I add my little flair to it?
Now that you say this, that actually makes me realize, a lot of times several listeners will have, multiple different favorite VAs. And I've seen even I think I remember one of your your fill of my work, that somebody else made a comment that they had seen someone else do it, and it was another person with the same script, right? So yeah, you're gonna have to stand out in that sense because of the fact that you're not the only person that this person's watching, right?
Can I ask a follow-up question for Yuki?
Sure. If you want to.
Sorry.
Yeah. No problem.
Do you also have a thing where you're like, I won't do a super duper popular script, or like if I see that somebody else who has more of an overlapping audience do the script, I won't do it?
I mean, so it's changed, and this is not to come off like in a negative way, but like I think in my case I have to be particularly sensitive to that, because I feel, not to say I feel bad, but I kind of do feel bad if I were to fill a script that I know smaller VAs have done, because generally speaking, I know that like my name is like a name brand. So if I do a script, it's always going to overtake their video. And so I'm more cautious of, well, I kind of want to do this, but then I'd feel like I'm taking away the opportunity for other VAs to succeed in the space. So I've willingly chosen not to fill scripts with that in mind, thinking that like I don't want to overshadow somebody else, I don't, because that just feels bad. And I recognize that like whenever I fill a script, it's naturally, if it's been done several times, I have the opinion that mine's probably always going to be number one. So I just try to be cautious of that.
Valid. Thank you.
The competitive side of VA, I guess.
I
But
feel
it is
like
an
it's just
interesting
how
take.
the algorithm works, you know? Like if it's a big YouTube channel, it's just gonna be up
Yeah,
there first.
that's
Yeah,
just how it
like
works.
even as a listener of ASMR myself, if I'm searching for a specific thing, top ones are like Fuki, other big creator, other big creator, other big creator, and I have to keep scrolling
Yeah,
to
because you're gonna
find
have to find other
smaller
people's
creators.
works and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess here's a tip for our writers. Please do that thing where you just have a compilation of every single fill and put it on your master list so people can find other people's work.
I have
also
a
do have
playlist on my YouTube channel.
I also do have a
We gotta
couple of little
appreciate all the
tips.
people who put in that effort, you know? And sometimes, you know, even the bigger channels might not necessarily have your favorite fill. That's just how it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I do have a couple of little tips for folks on this one.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So on the listener side, give some of the smaller channels a listen. There's a lot of really good performances that are hidden if you know where to look. Oftentimes, I find myself actually scrolling down quite a bit to try to find some of the newer channels that are just trying out a script for the first time. It's how you kind of find new up-and-coming VAs, and you also get to hear very original takes quite often because they're just not so used to the way that things are normally done. I find that there's a lot of creativity amongst the folks who are just starting out. Uh, Another thing that I would say is for VAs, this is one of those reasons to go deep diving into the script writer's big master lists. Oftentimes, there are good scripts that have just been overlooked because of the timing or because the title doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, but if you keep digging through, you'll often come across what I guess I'll say are hidden gems. And that's actually paid off quite well for me in the past. So, highly recommend that.
I'm terrible at coming up at coming up with titles, to be honest.
It's kind of funny because like my method has always just been, hey, let's write like a really wonky like title that attracts the VA, but I know for a fact isn't necessarily going to be on the YouTube post itself. But yeah.
Yeah, like you'll write something and you're like, what do I even title that?
Another nice
Or maybe
thing
that's
to
just a
do,
me.
another nice thing to do if you have a specific favorite writer, this is something that writers do as well, is to just look up the name of the writer and then sort by newest, just to see what people are posting. Because, I mean, there's a lot of writers who have people constantly voicing their work, and you'll find some really interesting fills out there if you do that. But anyway, let us move on to the next question. And this one's going to be for everyone. If applicable, what is something you did in the past while writing / voice acting that you no longer do now? Is there anything that you do now that you didn't do before? Please explain why. Our first person is Esme.
Alrighty. Well, I think one of the things that I used to do was fall into the you need to be better fallacy after writing. There's this kind of weird creative trap where when you produce something that people really like and you're happy with, sometimes it's like you want to kind of rest on that and enjoy the victory and everything, but something in your brain is like, no, you need to be better. And I've kind of sort of just abandoned that as I've gone on because it really serves no purpose trying to reach an arbitrary line of being better at the end of the day. You'll advance naturally as you go and have fun. So, really, there's no need to worry about it at the end of the day. Just enjoy your journey, take it at your own pace, and yeah, that's what I gave up for, yeah, just in general, and it's helped me a lot.
I feel like this is going to be an answer for a lot of people because I saw that conversation on Discord earlier. So we'll see what everyone else says.
Fair.
Bun, you're next.
This is something that I do that I need to retrain myself to not do. Which is just follow the algorithm gods. Like, I know if I post a Dommy Mommy vampire audio, I will get the views. And I love doing those audios. I like, genuinely, I do. But I need to go based on new things or challenge myself more because I can be a vampire lady any day of the week. But I also need to branch out, and maybe it'll get views, maybe it won't. But the funnest thing is when you do an audio and you don't expect it to do the rounds, and then suddenly, boom, you get like 40K views, which is a lot for me. Shut up, Fuyuki. Um, you get 40K views and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool. I have another niche." And I also, in my editing specifically, I have started cutting out a lot of, because I have a very loud computer. So I've been cutting out a lot of the times when I am not talking just to make it play smoother, so it's just silence and it's not computer sounds. So, those are the things that I have changed.
We'll see if everyone else has something similar to say. But honestly, yeah, I think this is also, and I sort of talked about this in the Discord too, where it's something similar in the art community where people say, hey, like, do things that you do like, don't burn yourself out. Yes, you are playing to an audience, but you know, always at least do something for yourself. But yes, next up, oh boy, Fuyuki, let's see if he has an answer to the whole 40K views thing.
I mean, 40K is a lot of views, I would say. Even to me, I think that's a lot of views. But in
I
general,
either get 40K views or 1K, and there is no in between.
sometimes it'd be like that. I can't lie, you know? I will say one thing that I think again, I'm going like opposite of like what everybody else is saying, which is so weird. But like I kind of stopped caring about EQing and trying to focus so much on like noise suppression and things like this towards the audio. And I kind of ran an experiment where I did an entire audio with like just nothing but my voice and no additional, like you hear my background, hear everything. And people loved it. Like honestly, I was quite amazed that nobody really pointed out or cared. And that made me think that okay, maybe this could be relative to my particular audience. It could be relative to that style of audio. But I think there is still significance in thinking that don't over rely on thinking that your audio needs to be perfect for people to enjoy it. I think more than anything else, if you have, something that's entertaining, something that's, pulls at the audience, something that they're interested in, they're going to like it. Of course, you want to put out the best type of content, but don't focus so much on that. Because I used to like spend hours trying to get like, oh, this EQ doesn't sound right, or let me adjust this, and I'd be in like adjusting my audio chain and doing all this stuff that like I just don't do anymore. And I feel like in retrospect, I definitely wasted a lot of time overthinking that. And it's significant, but not the biggest thing. I think that you can definitely overcook, and that's one thing that I think I was definitely overcooking.
You inadvertently answered a future question, but we'll get to that later. So, we had a question about EQ. But like I said, we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyways, Not, you are next.
All right. Well, first off, let me say that there's a lot of things I've done in the past with writing and voice acting that I don't do now. If we had the time, I could probably spend an hour or two just talking about that. I will also second what Fuyuki said, though. I think quite often on the VA side, there is this idea that we need to have all the professional tools in order to make professional grade audio because that's what listeners expect, because that's what they hear from the big channels. However, I'll point out that a lot of the VA channels started out with very simple techniques, very limited tools, and while still learning the ropes of audio editing. And those small channels did grow into big channels. So while you might not be starting out there, you're often going to find that people will come and listen to audios, even if there are some sound quality issues, as long as they're not too egregious. It actually doesn't really bother people. I mean, think about the times as a listener where you sort of don't notice background sounds, or maybe you hear somebody's cat in the background, and you're just like, oh, that's fine, I don't mind that at all, because it doesn't break immersion. And that, I think, is really what we're trying to do when we do the audio editing. It's just make sure that we don't have anything in there that's going to take you out of the scenario. Other things I'd say that I have perhaps done, building on that sort of answer, is just spent way too much time messing with things that the audience will never notice. It's sort of like if you were spending all your time working on painting the trees in the background of a stage set. You know, and you know that other people who work in the same industry are going to notice that maybe the color or shading's off, but the audience is there for other reasons, and they won't notice those fine details as long as they're enjoying the show.
It's a lot to take in there, but thank you so much for a very detailed answer.
Me trying to perfect my looping SFX on my latest video, and then realizing that nobody will give a shit.
Oh, let me also add, just to continue that briefly. If you enjoy doing those editing tricks, though, feel free to keep doing them. If you're having fun with it, I think that's perfectly all right, especially in amateur space, where a lot of us are really just doing this because we find it entertaining.
Alrighty, next up we have Man of Culture.
Well, I was thinking about this. I think for a long time, I really wanted this channel to work. I wanted like success, no matter what. And all I'd ever grown up with hearing from YouTubers is that you gotta put in more effort than anyone else. You gotta be faster, just push yourself more than anyone else. So for the longest time, I actually used to just upload every single day rapid fire, no matter how much it dwindled my quality. And eventually it came to a point where, because I actually talked to another VA at one point, and they gave me like one of the greatest advice. They said, "Dude, you need to let your videos breathe." And then it took me a bit, but you'll notice I only upload 3 days out of the week. I used to upload every day, and it actually came to a point where I was uploading scripts that had become so repetitive and so boring to me. I mean, I was still putting everything I had into it, but I was starting to fall out of love with what I do. So a thing I do nowadays is, because I especially recently have started writing my own scripts. So lately I've been covering topics that have been more interesting to me, because I love yanderes, but yanderes every single day for the rest of your life is gonna get repetitive. There's only so many ways a guy can kidnap you and make it sound attractive. So nowadays you'll notice like I've started making content that I find good, even though it kind of hurts that it's not necessarily popular with others. I'm just like, I need to do this for me. So I've done X-Men. I've done basically I've done basically glorified fan fictions at this point. I've done X-Men, Has Been. I had a Daredevil one in production. Basically a chance for me to nerd out. But yeah, I spent so long doing scripts that I wasn't too interested in, and now I'm doing scripts that are just like on top of it too. These new scripts, like I've noticed, like I'm over editing. Like I'm loving the editing process so much. Like, cause I'm editing in Audacity now. I used to actually edit in DaVinci Resolve, which was not that easy to understand. So now that I'm editing in the audio software of Audacity, I can edit the sound effects themselves and everything. I put everything together. Honestly, I feel like my audios lately are more detailed and more immersible. What's I don't know the word,
Immersive, I guess.
Immersible.
Yeah, greater immersion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I hope that about answered your question.
I think it also kind of comes back to the previous question too, like what makes you stand out. I mean, I haven't heard too many of those like fanfic style. I mean, some people do have like those very fanfic style audios out there, but I don't see them as much in, I guess, this particular space as much. A lot of bigger channels, I feel, have done a lot of those as well. So who knows? Maybe it'll get you somewhere.
I was one of those bitches in 2020 who was listening to all the My Hero Academia
I still see
Oh
those
my
sometimes.
God.
roleplays. Oh my.
Oh my God.
There's a market for
I've
it.
actually
There was a market, and it was me at 19.
I've considered doing a Bakugo one purely because I know 100% it would do well.
You can do it. I expect it now.
Like, I might write it.
I'm not yucking anyone's yum. I'm more just cringing at myself 4 years ago.
Oh man.
All right. Let us move on. So, GoldenProxy is next.
Okay. Monoculture, I also did a Daredevil-inspired script recently, so I understand. But regarding if something that I did in the past and I don't really do now. What I used to do when I was writing was when there's like meant to be like a little pause in the script for like the listener to speak or something like that. I'd always put like a little ... in between paragraph lines just to kind of indicate that. But I don't really do it now because I wasn't really sure how VAs felt about it. So I usually just let the dialogue kind of speak for itself in that case. Regarding something that I do now that I didn't do before. When I first started, I didn't realize we were supposed to have like terms of use in our scripts. You know, talking about like certain rules that we have for posting them, which is a good tip for anyone who wants to write scripts, is to kind of say what's okay for the VA to put, like gender flipping and stuff like that, or using AI art in the thumbnails. That's something that I figured out that I should do a few scripts in. So that's what I kind of do now that I wish I'd done earlier.
And speaking of, even if a writer doesn't have a terms of use for VAs, a nice little tip is if you have any questions, make sure to ask your writers. We don't bite much.
Yes.
Or at least try not to. And lastly, we have Timeraft.
So two things that I kind of did when I was starting that I don't really do anymore. The first thing is, kind of for lack of a better word, my earlier stuff is a lot hornier. Like, I thought it always had to end with like snuggling or making out or something, and I'd always just kind of shoehorn that in there. And it took me a long time to realize that a lot of people just want something where it's like, you know, you're chilling with this person or you're doing something, you know. It doesn't have to be romantic. And the other thing I would do a lot that I don't do as much is I kind of went through a phase where I was like, I'm just gonna, you know, LOL, so random XD, you know. I try to make things as weird as I possibly could. And I'm kind of past that, but that was something it took me a while to get over.
I mean, again, going back to the other question, does it make you stand out to do that? Who knows? But
maybe. I mean, I definitely like get tagged when people are like talking about really weird ideas. That happens a lot.
Sometimes you'd be surprised at what actually becomes popular. I'm actually shocked
Yeah, I don't
sometimes when
worry
I see it's like,
about.
wow, this doesn't have any romance in it, and yet it did so well. But you know, some people just want that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, most people are willing to listen to just about anything. That's what I've learned. You just have to make that case.
gotta make it entertaining enough. Let me check something here. Here. Oh, it was from not for moderating the stream chat. I think you're a moderator, not as well as myself. But anyways. Okay, yeah, just for people in the chat, let's try to keep the topics a little bit more toward what's going on in our chat and not so much what other people have done. Unfortunately, I can't be looking at the chat as much as I want to. Anyways, I'm going to try to move on to the next question. This is another for everyone from Yatterglass. What got you into ASMR? The first person is Bun.
Listening to ASMR, being a lonely teenager. Doing it, I've always hated my voice, especially back when I couldn't get it out of the, "Hi, welcome to how can I take your order?" Like, I had the customer service voice at all times, and I was finally a couple years ago able to, like, break myself out of that and just go with my normal voice. And so I had some friends be like, "Hey, you should try this," and I was like, "No." And then I tried it, and I got some good feedback to it, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Let's give this a shot." And then me just slowly getting more and more views, I was like, "Oh shit, this is actually a thing. Whoa." So that was a lot of fun. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. We'll see all the other interesting answers we have from everyone else. Next up is Timeraft.
So, I went through a period where I was listening to a lot of these. And in like a separate thing, I've always kind of been a writer. Like, I don't have any illusions about like, writing a book or a screenplay or anything, but it's something I like have to do to avoid going crazy, is I have to write stuff out. And I remember I was listening, I think it was I can see the thumbnail, but I can't remember the channel. And the VA shouted out the script author at the end, and I was like, oh, I always thought people just wrote these and then performed them. So I emailed her and I said I had a draft script. It's not one I'm particularly proud of. And she's like, it's not really one that fits the vibe on my channel, but she showed me the subreddit. And I kind of that became what I was doing when I sat down to write, was I just wrote this stuff and posted it on the subreddit.
Okay, sorry about that. Trying to do several things at once. Next up, it's Fuyuki.
I mean, I feel like my origin's pretty well documented. I got into ASMR because a friend told me about it, and they said I can make a lot of money. And they originally wanted to like manage my channel. I told them no at the time, but it piqued my interest to see like what this whole thing was about. And then I watched some videos, and then I cringed, and then I said I would never do that. And then I started to do that, and then it became my job. And yeah, been doing it since.
Well, again, we're glad to have all of you here. Because of that, again, there's so many different ways that we've found this community, and it's been doing nicely for us. Next up, we have Not.
Well, I'll say there's a couple of different ways that I got into it. The first, I think, unsurprisingly, like most other folks, I came across ASMR audio roleplays and quite enjoyed listening to them. But really, the only reason that I decided to actually try voicing them It was because of a random comment I got one day, just out in public. Somebody said, you have a nice voice. And I'm like, really? I don't think so, but, well, if you say so. And then I got to thinking about it a little bit more and said, maybe I should try this. And at first, my thinking was, as long as at least, one person thinks it sounds decent, then why not do it? Doesn't really cost me anything, and hey, I might have a bit of fun. And that's what led me to doing the VA thing.
And we are glad to have you here as well. I still remember when you started out. Remember like seeing your channel when you first did one of my fills, and I'm like, oh, who's this? It's a new person. I always like seeing that whenever new people come into the community and then see them grow to where they are today. Next up, we have Man of Culture.
I think I actually said the first time on the first podcast I was on, I actually started this as a joke. See, I already had audio equipment because I wanted to become a voice actor. And then one night I was hanging out with some friends, and it was like 1 a.m, and I don't know how I got it in my head, but I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I made like one of those Yandere audios that I've been listening to recently? And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I think I can do it. And then I recorded because I had Audacity installed. I recorded an audio, and there was no script. There was nothing. There was just me making up lines that a generic Yandere would say. Which did actually start with, "Oh, you're awake now."
The classic Yandere line.
Yeah, actually. But yeah, then from there, after I posted it, because at the time I had been doing anime reviews, and I was like, okay, this ain't gonna work. So when I posted it, I never expected it to go anywhere. I was like, okay, that was a fun off video. Then it got like decently popular, up to like 400 or 500 views at the time. And I was like, there's an audience for this? And then there was like people who were like, hey, you're underrated, you got a good voice. And I was like, I do? I've got one talent. I can do something with my life. So then from there it kind of just spiraled into, occasionally uploading and then occasionally not uploading for a few months and then occasionally uploading until eventually I kind of reached where I am now.
And I hope we'll hear more stories like this from others where they end up becoming even more popular maybe the next time that we bring them on. We'll see. Next up, we have GoldenProxy.
So my story is basically the same as Timeraft's, to be honest. I was just listening to some videos. I don't remember whose they were, but I remember seeing the script written by on the thumbnail and in the description, and basically that's when I was like, oh, so I assume the voice actors wrote these or improvised them or something. So that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of finding the Script Haven subreddit, and from there I kind of figured out how to format them and kind of started going down the rabbit hole of writing, basically.
We're glad that you were able to join us. And I'm not sure if you actually moved over to Talking Tall Tales yet, or is it just Script Haven?
No, it's just Script Haven at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know what Talking Tall Tales is, to be honest.
That's my subreddit, the new one.
Oh, okay. I'll
For anyone who hasn't joined yet, it's another place to post scripts to if you want another option.
Okay.
And speaking of which, we have Esme last.
Okay, first, how dare you? No, I'm just kidding. But yes, do feel free to stop by anytime. It's a lovely community.
I'll give it a
What
look.
got me into ASMR? So funnily enough, when I got started, I had just finished a book that didn't pan out, and I was really disillusioned with my writing at the time, so I was kind of just listening to whatever on YouTube, and the algorithm decided to bless me with one of Zan's videos, I think, way back when. And it was like some drama, like, oh, your ex's twin brother is into you or some nonsense. And I love me some drama, so I was like, fuck it, I have nothing to do this afternoon. And then I just kind of went down a rabbit hole and eventually did the same thing where I was like, I wonder if they're writing this. Stumbled on Cardlin's video and was like, oh, okay. And then my fiance basically convinced me to post Daisy up, which was my first one, and the rest is kind of history. In fact, if he hadn't convinced me, I don't think I ever would have posted in the first place, so props to him.
Always glad to hear that. Actually, like somebody pushing us to do something. It's like, hey, it ends up being a big success.
Esme, it was another creator who was constantly using your scripts that maybe like, oh shit, there's like actual scriptwriters for these things. It's EsmeJones, it's EsmeJones, it's EsmeJones. And I was like, oh shit. He must have like a personal writer on staff.
It's me.
And then I got into the community and I was like, oh shit, this is so much cooler than I thought about.
It really is. Yeah, it was a lot of fun when I first joined and everything. But I've had people be like, God damn, do you just write the whole fucking like thing? Like, no. Just some. I have been told I need to chill, so I refuse. I'm gonna keep posting scripts.
Please do.
Never chill. Never chill.
Alrighty. Let us move on to our next question. This one's from Az, and this was what I was talking about before the EQ thing. So, basically something that Vic already answered to an extent. But anyways, here's my questions. I'm getting lost everywhere. How would you make a mic sound better with EQ or editing? I have a cheap but decent mic, and conveniently, Fuyuki's first.
So, I mean, there are a couple different ways. I have some programs that I always recommend right now that I use because I really don't use much. If you're looking at just getting rid of background noise, I think there's a program called SteelSeries, and they have this component of it called SteelSeries Sonar, and that is the best active noise cancellation I have ever heard. Like compared to NVIDIA Broadcast, compared to Elgato, compared to any other program, and it's free. Like you don't even need to have a SteelSeries product, which is crazy to me. It is literally my number one, so I'm always recommending it because it's crazy good. I say that this could probably turn any mic pretty solid if you're worried about background noise. And to be honest, as somebody who's invested like way too much money into microphones, I think that like don't overthink it so much because the mic's not gonna like change your voice really. Because a lot of people tend to think, oh, this mic's gonna fix everything, thinking it might, make changes to how you sound or your voice. But really, that's literally just you, So biggest thing, getting comfortable with how you sound, getting comfortable with the voice, and learning to work with the mic that you have. But if you do need a program, SteelSeries Sonar, best number one. I can't say enough about it.
Thank you for elaborating on that. I think it probably was helpful for us. Next up is Maniculture.
I was actually thinking about this because I think one of the greatest things I ever discovered was voice mod, which you can use to like change up your voice for like sound effects and stuff like that. Like I want to do the Alistair radio effect or if I want to do other stuff. But I use it particularly because it has this one called a voice enhancer, and it gets rid of all background noise. It makes my voice more prominent. It doesn't like change my voice, but it'll get rid of background noise. It'll make your voice prominent. It'll just overall enhance the quality. It'll turn like I feel like a $50 mic into like a $250 mic, And yeah, that's basically what I use all the time. I'm even using it now. So yeah.
Let's see. Next up, we have Not.
Well, So let me start by saying that environment first. A lot of folks try to fix things with software alone, and it's very hard to do. Even the best software is going to struggle. But the question is specifically about what can we do with software, meaning EQ and editing. There's a couple of different tricks that I think can be used. Noise reduction software that exists out there can work out pretty well. There's some very inexpensive stuff, such as just auto gating, and then there's some very expensive stuff, such as the RX11 suite, that does a remarkable job in cleaning up a lot of audio art. That said, if you're starting to purchase that kind of software, you may want to look into just upgrading the microphone before going down that route. I also actually am going to say that I think certain microphones help quite a bit with the VA process, but mostly it's about finding one that makes you personally feel very comfortable with recording. Down at the, I guess, simpler end of things, a couple of things you can do with EQ. You can try cutting off the low end or the high end of the frequencies using a low pass filter or a high pass filter. Some microphones have little issues with very high frequencies or very low frequencies. So if you chop some of that off, you can sound a little bit better. That's only usually with very, very cheap microphones, though. Aside from that, I think sometimes the right thing to do is to lean into it. If your microphone is noisy, but the noise that you're capturing in the background is appropriate ambiance, it works great. One of the things I used to do very early on was actually pick scripts and scenarios that let me have slightly worse quality and have it be fitting. So if you do Slice of Life, for example, where you're sitting in a bedroom as the speaker, talking to the listener, then it's fine that your background sounds like a bedroom, that it has maybe, I don't know, the sound of your neighbors in the distance arguing back and forth over something, because it's fitting for where you're at. It's fitting for the script. Likewise, I used to, in many cases, have issues where my audio might sound a little hollow, and actually this is because I would overprocess it at times. But that could work very well for, say, an Android speaker, where the intention is to have the voice sound just a little bit more mechanical and a little bit more artificial. So I think I probably danced around the question a lot there, but EQ, high pass and low pass filters are going to be some of the best things you can do in the very, very near term if you have no money whatsoever to spend on it. And as far as editing, the sky's the limit as far as what you can do to improve things. One little trick that I would say is if you're having trouble with clarity of your voice, you can add just a tiny, tiny, very, 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 very light touch of reverb behind it. That slightly enhances the ability of listeners to hear the individual words you're saying. So if you come across as a little bit blurred when you're speaking, try just adding a touch of reverb.
It's very detailed. Not with the very detailed answers. But thank you. I think it has been very helpful. So lastly, we have Bun.
Hi, I have the quick and dirty way.
Please elaborate. If possible.
That's yeah. He turned off my mic for a sec.
Oh, that's right.
I told you. Milo's gonna wreak havoc. So one thing that I do, not with editing and not with buying a new mic, is I bought this thing that is a noise shield for your mic, the mic stand. And that seems to help a lot, especially when limiting my computer noise. And then my effects that I use, I do oh geez. In Audacity, I use noise removal and repair. So I'll leave like a good 10-second chunk of just my background noise at the beginning of the recording so it can delete those automatically. And then I also drop my gain down just a little bit on my voice file, on just my voice track. And then that definitely helps. I do need to look more into how the hell EQ works because I am dumb and don't know how that works. So, yes, that's what I use.
I'll get
And
that
I
when we get there.
use background like noise tracks of like, oh, you're in a coffee shop. There's gonna be people talking behind you. Oh, you're at a ball. Cool. There's music. There's music and dancing and laughing, and I use those to kind of help hide my mic imperfections. And then, like I said earlier, I will cut out the parts of my voice track that I'm not actively talking in, and that helps with the background noise as well.
Thank you for the answer. Also, we have to do a little bit of a send-off for Fuyuki, who has to leave right now, but thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Bye.
See y'all
Bye,
later.
Yuki.
Goodbye.
Bye, Fuyuki.
See you
Bye.
again.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So I have to actually remove him from the list. Let me do that. This is a problem. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to wing this without Fuyuki. I'm just kind of stuck in the list, but it's fine. Let us move on to the next question, and these are going to be interspersed with Twinkie's questions because all of Scared Az's questions were for the VAs. So from Twinkie, this is for writers. When creating a character, what do you tend to focus more on? Their personalities, their part in the story, or maybe the way they affect the listener or the protagonist speaker? The first person is Timeraft.
So I'm reading this question as just how do you conceive of a character?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, just how do you come up with your character, essentially?
Well, there's a couple ways you can do that. Like, sometimes you get kind of like an idea that's like, here's this archetype, but what if this happened instead? Like I just posted one the other day that's like Cinderella, but then it turns out that like the fairy is like actually kind of thinks maybe they should date her instead of whoever they're going to the ball for. And the other way that it kind of happens for me is I just kind of think of like sort of a personality type that I find interesting. Sometimes I'm even inspired by like people I know. Like not necessarily in the fact that I make them a character, but I'm like, I saw this guy at the grocery store behave this way, and I wonder why he did that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I
kind of
tend to
interesting. Yeah.
I tend to be very character focused, and then everything else kind of grows around them. But I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. It's an interesting take. I've never heard of like I guess the people watching is what we call it.
Yeah,
I'm just
I'm a
trying to
people
get
watcher.
a feel for like why people do certain things. Anyways, let us move on to not.
Well, I think there's going to be two ways I'm going to answer this. What do I do versus what should I do? So, what I often do is create characters that are really there to drive the story along and to sort of serve as a vehicle for the listener to go on an adventure. Because that's sort of the way I usually think about the stories is what is the experience I'd like the listener to have? Where would I like to be able to take them? What do I want to be able to show them? However, I actually think the character personality in the audio roleplay space is one of the more important aspects. I think people, or listeners especially, really like to have memorable characters presented to them. The they want to hear the VA give life to a speaker who they will come to know and love. I think that the most enduring scripts and the most enduring performances that have been on my channel that people bring up time and time again are really those where the characters had a very strong and very distinctive personality. Here I'll, for example, credit Esme, A Moth to Flame, which I know is not finished, so apologies to listeners, but it is one of those things that people remember because the character's personality really shines through. The events taking place in each part of the script are, of course, important, but not nearly as important as sort of the feeling that you get in interacting with the character.
I guess we can, well, we can continue that on with the mod to play maybe, because Esme is actually next.
Sure. So for me, I use the triple C method, which is just catch concept character. The catch is just that initial thing where it's like, ooh, idea. And then you come up with the concept, which is like, do I want to write this person in a romance? Do I want to write them in a certain role or a certain plot? And then the character kind of happens after the fact. Now, I usually focus on big personalities in my scripts anyways, just because they're kind of more fun to do, and I tend to focus on active listeners instead of passive ones. So it's nice to have characters for the listeners to kind of bounce and react off of, even if they're not necessarily saying anything. So that's just kind of my general method. I always go in kind of character first to most of my stories, just because they're the most fun things to start with, to be honest. Um, what I could focus more on, gosh, I think just stringing everything together. I need to be a little bit more cohesive about that, because I'm gonna stick with that as my final answer. I'm working on it though.
I think that's always a challenge, especially when you have a series. It's something that I always find difficult. It's like, hey, we need to have some consistency like throughout, I guess, the entire series. And especially, I think what makes it challenging sometimes is when that character is supposed to change and you have to kind of work around like, hey, how is this type of person supposed to change but also still be the same person, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a
difficult.
challenge for sure.
Ready, and last we have GoldenProxy.
Okay, so I definitely agree with what Nort said, where he said that characters are kind of the most important part of an ASMR script because they are essentially kind of the main reason people are going to be watching or reading the script. I'm a discovery writer, so I kind of just make the script up as I go along. So really, I'll just be thinking to myself, what do I want to write? I'll get an idea. I'll note it down. Let's say vampire wants to bite you or something. That's like that's a very general title. From there, I'll just come up. I'll start writing, and then as I'm writing it, the story and the character's personality and plot will just kind of all come together. So it's really the idea of what I want to write, and then I kind of jump off it from there and kind of make it up as I go along, to be honest, and then edit it so it looks like it makes sense.
So just wing it in a way.
Yeah, basically. but I cover it up so nobody knows I did that until I just said it now.
Alrighty, let us move on to the next scared ass question for our VAs. What are your thoughts on people who have accents in the voice acting and ASMR community, more specifically VA as a whole and not just RP? I guess like what scared ass means by this, because I'm like, technically everybody has an accent, right? But I mean, I guess like a non like English speaker, or rather like, for instance, because like traditionally like a lot of us in this community speak English and a lot of our content is written in English. So I guess it's more of the people who aren't native speakers of English that have accents that aren't like, say, traditional American accents or like British accents or whatever, I guess is the best way to put it. So our first person is Bun.
I love accents. I love it. I love it. I love people who have accents. I often here's the thing. I say this without meaning anything bad by it. I think if you have an accent that is indicative of you not being a native English speaker, um, it is harder to get a foothold. And part of that, I think, is maybe people being like, I don't want to listen to that. And part of it is, I mean, in my case, personally have a hard time understanding thicker accents just in general. So it makes me have to listen harder, if that makes sense. But I'm always so sad when I see an amazing, talented VA who has a thick accent and also has like a tiny amount of subscribers because I'm just like, you deserve all of it. But yeah, whatever accent you got, do it. Just give it a shot. And heck, even like do it in your native language too. I think I might be wrong. Dream Boyfriend, I think, does uh videos in his native language as well as in English, and I think it is so cool. Um, so yeah, if you speak another language or if English isn't your native language, go for it anyways. I love it. I love it. Give me more. Give me more.
Kind of coming back to that in a way, or at least something that I mentioned before is just to make sure before you translate, to make sure if it's okay with the writer, because sometimes some people aren't okay with it, to have their works translated, because sometimes it's difficult to tell whether it's a direct translation or if it's like localized in a way, if you can call it that. But again, I think several people are okay with it in general. Like personally, I'm okay with people voicing things in their native language, and I've had several voice actors do this with my work, and I guess I don't know if anyone else has had that, but I guess we'll actually, because this isn't even a
I've had
question
that a
for our
few
writers, but I don't know if anyone of our writers have had VAs that speak other languages other than English end up translating your works.
I've had
I
that.
had that happen a couple times.
It's an interesting thing to see. It's hard to kind of figure out where they are in the story, I guess. But if you go line by line, you're like, okay, that's what that means, right?
They've been nice enough to send messages asking if it's okay, and of course it is.
I'm not a VA, but I'll tell you, like, I think if you have like an accent, and I think that people that speak like with the more Asian, South Asian accents feel more pressure to kind of hide it. But I think you're far better off just embracing it and like doing just acting, like some people might get turned off by the fact that you have an accent, but I live in an area with a lot of Bangladeshi people, and I'm used to hearing like, the South Asian accent everywhere, so it doesn't bother me as much. I think just put effort into your acting, and your accent's not going to be a problem.
I guess we'll move on to the next VA because it's a VA question. Man of culture.
I kind of wanted to mention there, I did actually have a channel, well, not a channel, but I had a guy reach out one time. And they were like, can I put this on, it was, I forget what it was, but it was some Chinese social network. They were like, can I put this on there and then translate it? And I was like, oh, okay. And I barely had like 5K subscribers. I was like, that is cool. I'm popular. But anyways, when it comes to accents, honestly, anybody who's seen my channel knows I love doing accents. Like for a while, it was actually funny because I would have people show up in my live streams on weekends, and they'd be like, "Well, this is your natural voice. I only know you from your vampire audios where you do the fancy British voice." And I'm like, "Haha, which one is which? Which is my real accent?" But yeah, I think accents are great in audios and they can be utilized well. Me personally, I've done a host of them, even some that were just genuinely bad, like when I tried an Irish accent one time. Um, and obviously, I wouldn't be able to do my Alistair stuff without the without that accent, because that one is like a whole thing. In terms of like VAs who have natural accents that are peeking into their work, I will say there have been times where I've been kind of taken out of an audio where it's like an established character and the accent is very off. But honestly, just lean into your own stuff. Lean into your accent if you like it and everything like that. At the end of the day, just you got to make the character your own. When it's an established property, it's kind of a little weird, and I'm just a little nitpicky about that stuff. But other than that, do your own thing. Your accent is great. I say go with it.
Actually, going back to what you said about the whole people not knowing which accent is the real one, I've seen a couple of VAs who are so good at hiding their original accent that people are surprised when they hear like, oh wait, that's your actual accent, and they think it's a completely different one. It's pretty crazy. But I think it just goes to show the talent in this community, just how good some people are at being able to pull that off. So props to you if you
Oh
can do
yeah,
that.
it's impressive.
But yes, lastly, we have not.
All right. Well, I'd say I have so many thoughts about accents in the voice acting and ASMR community, as well as just VAing in general. First, I'll agree. I think that accents are actually quite not just good, but they can be very useful as a VA. It gives your voice a distinctive texture that listeners tend to remember. Sometimes I do worry about coming across as a little too bland when doing certain voices, where there's a lot of when I started out, there were a lot of just deep voiced boyfriend audio type things, and I said to myself, well, I don't want to just do the standard thing that everyone's doing. So I actually thought that it would be important to try to cultivate a number of different accents in order to just have more fun with it. So I actually encourage you to try to make the most of your accent, and some of the VAs who have been very successful seem to have really leaned into it and figured out how to build characters around their accent. I think especially in, say, the fantasy and sci-fi scenarios, you can do a lot of things. You can take your natural accent, you can twist it all sorts of ways, and you can come up with brand new accents. I mean, what do you suppose somebody from Mars sounds like? Or what does this high elf sound like? They can have any accent you'd like. So those are things that I think are fantastic. As far as international translations, I actually have had quite a few experiences with that I've enjoyed. I had a VA translate my entire script into French, and I actually think the French performance was remarkably good. If I didn't know that it started out in English, I would never have guessed that it wasn't a entirely French script. And then also, what I found is that listeners in the audio roleplay space specifically, they actually aren't always all that concerned about understanding what we're saying. That might be a bit odd, but if you think about it, many people listen to audio roleplays to go to sleep, or they'll have it on as background sound. Actually, I was told that some of my listeners don't actually understand what I'm saying, which is fascinating. They just like the way that the cadence sounds, and they like the sound of the words. Likewise, some of the other VAs I've spoken to, or scriptwriters I've spoken to, they'll listen to foreign language performances they don't understand because it still has that emotional texture. So all this is to say that if you do have a accent, have fun with it. It's a distinct thing that you have that you can do quite a lot with if you so choose. In terms of VAs as a whole, trying to get the bigger picture here, not just the audio roleplay space, I would say take a look at the fact that a lot of actors actually have accents, and a lot of the most memorable ones have very distinctive accents. And most often they sort of make it part of their character. Now, if you want to try to break out of your original accent because you just want to try different things, I would say what I found worked pretty well for me was to over-exaggerate other accents. And then eventually you can sort of feel your accent shifting around as you do that. And that can be quite nice, actually. Because if you don't take yourself too seriously when you're doing the accents, you slowly become a lot more comfortable just falling into it. And as you feel less strained when doing an accent, it starts to feel more natural, and you'll actually end up sounding more natural. So those are all tips and tricks and thoughts on accents and voice acting.
I actually really like that idea of kind of working it into a fantasy setting, and I always say this, where fantasy you can do so much with it because it's such a versatile thing. You can come up with any narrative, and I mean, again, I like that idea of let's use whatever accent you have to your advantage, kind of add to the story or the setting. But yeah, it's a really cool thing to have at your disposal. Anyways, next up we have another question from Twinkie for our writers. What would be your primary advice for writing conversations between two characters? First up is GoldenProxy.
So I would say this is a pretty. I tend to quite like writing dialogue, which is why I think I've taken to writing ASMR scripts so much, because they're all dialogue. To be fair, I don't actually write much dialogue between two speaking characters in these scripts. Usually, it's just between the speaker and the listener, so it's a bit different. But I would say if you can, try and like ItsEsmeJones said a couple questions ago, try and make the listener an active character rather than just having them be a blank slate that the speaker is talking to. Give both of your characters personalities, even if we can't actually hear what the listener is saying. Make them as real as possible. Really, everybody thinks that they're the main character, so try and include that.
I actually like that idea. It's like everyone thinks they're the main character of their own story.
Yes.
That's one way to look at it. Next up, we have Esme.
So I'm kind of with Golden. Writing dialogue is one of my favorite things to do, and it's one of the most prominent things in this particular medium. For conversations, I usually either refer to my catch moment, like what inspired the idea in the first place, to kind of try and base it around that. So, for example, if I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make everybody miserable and write an angst script, let's freaking go, then usually the catch is like a bad memory or an argument or a am I the asshole post on Reddit or something like that, right? So I'll kind of use that as like a starting point, and then I'll just sort of improv the conversation in my head, or I'll just free write it out and adjust as I go and everything, because at that point the characters can pretty much speak for themselves.
Let me see. Okay. Next up, we have Not.
Well, I would say that the primary thing for getting characters to talk is to give them something to do. I find that if you are actually observing people, they'll talk most often when they have a reason to talk. Think about like a group project when people don't know each other. They're sort of just strangers thrown together, right? What gets them to actually start opening up and talking more about themselves, their interests, their opinions, is for them to have a shared activity. And thankfully, in the audio roleplay space, we get to invent that activity. So we can engineer all these reasons why they have to communicate with each other. And the more things that you give them to have to express themselves about, the more the characters will talk. And the beautiful thing is this works between the speaker and the listener, or multiple speakers, because all it is just finding the right situation to put them in where they really express their personality in full.
And okay, and then we have Timeraft.
I'm with Not on that. Like in a lot of times you see in like movies and stuff, people will talk in a way that like they'll never talk. Like they'll say like stuff like, "Ah, my cousin, how are you today?" And, like nobody says that, you know. And the other thing is like in a script, it's very regimented. Like character A talks, character B talks. I mean, anybody that's ever been in a conversation ever knows that that's not the way it goes. Like, you know, you might cut somebody off because you're excited to say something. Um, you know, even in a polite conversation, people are always like nodding and going, "Oh yeah, right," you know, or they're talking over each other. Like real life talking is a very chaotic thing, and it's hard to express that in a script, but I think if you can make that work, it really makes the whole thing feel so much more grounded.
That's actually a pretty good point. Something that I've also struggled with trying to figure out how to do that. People talking over each other because it happens, right? It's really hard to convey that in a script when, you're going line by line. You'd have to write out, it's like this person talks over this person at this point, and it gets a little bit cluttered on the script, but again, props to people who can figure out how to do that and make it legible.
Yeah, I don't have any tips on how to do that, but if you can make it happen, it really is worth it.
I think that's kind of where voice direction comes in. If people want, I guess, more voice direction, we have our little VC direction things if you want to reach out to specific writers if they're okay with doing that. I might actually add to something. Well, it's more. I think it's more specifically for multi-VA scripts because it's a little hard to convey that when it's just one speaker and one listener, unless they start kind of like you can kind of, I guess, pull off the whole thing of the listener cutting off the speaker, but it's harder to do that with the speaker cutting off the listener, I feel. But anyways, let us move on to the next question, and this is the last Scared to Ask question for our VAs. What are your favorite types of audios to watch and make? We have Maniculture first.
Okay. So I don't watch audios as much as I used to. I do still sleep with them because the ASMR helps me fall asleep. But I will say I'm more inclined to listen to an audio if it's got like serial killers and slashers. Like I love the horror movie aspects, I'm gonna be honest. I think that's why I did so much yandere content and why I kind of do is because I love horror movies. In terms of it, yeah, I can't really think of anything else for this question. My bad. That's about as much as I can think of this.
Slasher audios.
Dude, my sister falls asleep to serial killer documentaries. My brother falls asleep to Sopranos.
In those cases, it's more like there's a calm voice like talking the whole time. But it's like if they're screaming, like I can't.
Dude, last night I fell asleep to a audio of Freddy Krueger.
Oh my gosh. To each their own, I guess.
But yeah, that's all I can think of for this question.
That's fun. Next up we have Not.
Well, one of the nice things is I make a lot of what I like to watch. It helps me quite a bit, I think, because what often happens is that I will be watching some, or rather, I guess, listening to some performance and think to myself, that's really cool. I want to do something like that. Oh, I'm enjoying this story so much. I'm enjoying that kind of character so much. This is a great idea for a setting. and I try to use a lot of that as inspiration, or at least in helping me decide, what sort of scripts to go and look for next. So it's all sort of one and the same. And if you're familiar with my channel, as I say, it's the comforting and the concerning in roughly equal measure. So that means that I actually quite enjoy the yandere characters, both as a performer and a listener. I do enjoy the slice of life stuff as both a performer and a listener. But really, what I like best is just a lot of audios that try to think outside of the box and push things in different directions and have characters who have internal conflicts where they really aren't just, living a comfortable life. They are going through the world and trying to figure out how they fit into it, being the distinctive person that they are. Those, I think, always appeal to me quite a bit. And in situations where they're really outside of their depth. That is also quite entertaining. It's one of the reasons I, for example, have been enjoying the Wonderland series, again, both as a performer and as a listener. In a sense, there's been several other VAs who've started that as well. Because what you really get a chance to do is see all these very exciting characters who are struggling to figure out really who they are in a very literal sense. And then also what is going on in the world around them and what will they do next. And I think that carries over into being very interesting for audiences. So as much as I'm fascinated by it, I think other people are. And yeah, that is my answer. I try to make what I like to watch.
Here's an extension question. Do you ever sleep to your own audios?
Well, maybe it's a bit conceited, but I have fallen asleep a couple of times to some of mine while listening to them for quality checks. So that's a bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
It's like you got killing two birds with one stone, I guess. And lastly, we have Bun.
I have two different styles of audios that I like to listen to. I have the stuff I listen to fall asleep, and I have the stuff that I listen to just in general. Stuff that I listen to just in general, I like the weird, more menacing and freaky rather than romantic yandere. I think those are fascinating. Like, whenever there's a spin on the yandere genre, perfect, love it. And then in general, I love fantasy audios. I love, like, fae audios or vampires because, of course, I do. Like, I love listening to those. I personally like performing slice of life audios a lot, but I also end up performing a lot of fantasy audios because I feel like they do the best. But I love performing any sleepy, cute slice of life audios. Those are my favorites. So, yeah.
A very nice variety. We like that from our VAs.
Oh, one thing, I will have to find who the actual, VA is of it, because I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there is one person who did a yandere audio that was, a yandere fencer finds their new training dummy. And that is freaky as hell, and I love it.
I don't know if anyone else is familiar with that, or even our listeners. It does not sound familiar to me, unfortunately. But anyways, let us move on to actually a previous podcast member who was unable to join us for today, unfortunately. from Turtle Shark. This is for everyone. Is there any character slash genre slash creature, etc., that you enjoy listening to or reading, but don't feel like you can write slash voice it yourself? First up is Timeraft.
I kind of like more like dark, sort of twisted people, but like I never feel like I can write that without kind of coming off as like, little Timmy writing his first OC, like a character like the Joker or Hannibal Lecter or something. I kind of like that, but not really something I'm capable of. And as far as genres go, I can't really do thrillers. I'm not very good at suspense. And if I do suspense, it's usually a lot more quiet.
I don't know if it's just me, but horror stuff in general is just kind of difficult. You kind of need to have like a talent for it, or like like an innate talent for it.
And you really don't want to set somebody off.
Who wouldn't want to?
You
But
know?
yeah, but maybe just me personally. Maybe for some people it just comes to them naturally. Next up is GoldenProxy.
So I can't really think of any anything that I enjoy that I couldn't write. I like to think that I'm able to write something if I like it, and there's nothing that comes to mind really. But one type of creature that I can't really write is demons, because I think they just freak me out a little bit too much, and I prefer to avoid it if possible. The only time I've written a script that was demon related was a cringe demon script. So it's like a sleep paralysis demon, but for cringe. And that was more of a comedy script than anything. So that's the closest I've come to it.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head of like other of your works, but I mean, like, I guess comparatively when you do something like, I don't know, like say a vampire or whatever, like it seems, I guess, similar to a demon in a sense. I was like, what would be the
think it might
difference
be
in
like
that case?
like a religious element, maybe.
Oh, maybe, I guess, yeah.
In some lore, vampires are actually considered demons.
That is
Oh, okay.
interesting.
I was not aware of that.
But I guess like
You can
maybe
do whatever
the
you want with
terminology
vampire.
used, possibly. Because I guess when you think like vampires, like you have, I guess like because they're so ingrained in popular culture. Like I mean, you have like your standard Dracula, but then you have stuff like Twilight, right? You got like the romances and stuff. And
Or Starion.
it's kind of like a story, yeah. For all the people who played Baldur's Gate.
It depends on which culture you're drawing the vampire mythos from, because there are vampires in so many cultures.
Yeah, you can see so many different ones. I mean, like even like if you watch like the Harry Potter series, like you have like a totally different type of vampires and werewolves there, like in existence, like comparatively to something like, again, like more modern stuff. But it's interesting to see the different cultural interpretations of those creatures, and I think it adds a lot to I guess or like it takes a lot of creativity to give them, I guess, a different type of light to put them in. Next up we have Not.
Well, the short answer is yes. But really, I think what actually might be more interesting to know is that I feel that the characters I can't write and the characters I can't voice are two distinct categories. They don't fully overlap. So I actually, personally, struggle quite a bit with writing cute slice of life or really sadistic characters. I often find myself wanting to turn them into a bit of a comedy or just a bit of a tragedy. So usually slice of lives end up being more tragic than they perhaps otherwise should be, and characters who are more intense often end up being comedic. However, I do enjoy voicing those. The characters I can't really voice very well are actually a lot of the cutesy ones. I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the reasons that I have a script featuring a Neko who's not very cute is because I actually find it very difficult to do, say, a cute Neko voice, or a lot of the more traditionally lighter and cuter characters. It's something I really struggle with. I just don't always feel very comfortable doing it, or at least doing it well, shall we say.
So I'm trying to imagine Neko not. It's like just this very, I don't want to say, what's the word for that? Um, there's a term for this where, like, where you have something and you think it's going to be one way, but then there's like, I guess like this sort of weird dissonance to your expectations. I think that
I
would be
do
kind of
enjoy
interesting
those kinds of
to
characters.
hear that though. Just this very deep voice, Neko.
There, you should check out my script and check out the performance of it.
This is our shameless plug moment. We never actually did have the proper shameless plug moment. We'll do that at the end, I guess. Anyways, next up we have Esme.
Okay. Well, I think everybody's aware that I'm a little weird, and one of my favorite genres is horror, so I have a ton of like horror stuff out there. The thing I find the most difficulty writing, though, is kind of the unrepentant douchebag trope where they don't get any comeuppance at the end. Kind of the Patrick Bateman kind of character, Wolf of Wall Street, that sort of thing. I can't do it because everything in me is screaming like, and then he gets punched in the throat, right? And then he gets punched in the throat, right? Please just write him getting, and it's like, I think that's why I struggle with like stories where there's bullies or just douchey characters and everything. They usually end up with either happy-ish endings or, some kind of repentance on the side of the bully. I've never successfully put out just this guy is a douche, nothing will change, enjoy the show sort of script, and I don't think I'm capable of doing it, unfortunately.
Oh gosh, now I'm gonna be on Esme's bad list because I embrace the evil of my characters.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses. This is fine.
But hey, that catharsis is nice sometimes. Alrighty, Man of Culture is next.
So, I had a hard time with this question because I was like, I'm kind of like, I'll throw my voice into anything, absolutely anything. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, I do struggle with, because I like listening to Dami audios, and I do struggle sounding dominant in an audio. I think there's a difference between being a psychopath and then actually sounding dominant. Every time I try, I get like somebody in the comments that's like, "Oh, he's so cute and submissive," and I'm like, "Come on, that was not the vibe I was going for." I think the only time I've ever managed to do it was one time, and it was when I did the Yandere degradation audio, because for some reason, and I had people in the in the chat, and I mean not the chat but the comments, who were like, "Man, you really had fun with this, didn't you?" Because I was coming up with so many clever insults, it was crazy. But like the rest of the time, I've never been able to do that again. And anytime I try to sound like I'm like the cool dominant guy, and then people are like, "No, no, you're not. You're really not." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, I'm not beating the bottom allegations." that's that's all I could come up with.
Honestly, I think there's like a market for this. Like I've seen this somewhere where people just like as the type of character that tries to come out on top, but like, oh, it's like I can't take this character seriously. But I mean, you could honestly like turn that into, I guess, a strength in a way, if that makes sense.
Oh, I have.
Like it's
I have.
Well, there you go, right?
I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many subby audios I have because I was like, all right, if that doesn't work, I guess I'll go back to what works for me.
I mean, hey, like I said, whatever works. And lastly, we have Bun.
I have a list.
Please go through the list.
Horror. No, can't do it. Mean characters. I like trying my hand at subby audios. I just get embarrassed. I'm just like, no. And then I also don't. I'm just not the. Oh, I had another one. Super sexual audios. I can't do it. Like trust me, I have some spicy content, but it's like I like I don't know how to describe it in a way that YouTube will like, but like there's just certain bars I'm like, I would never say that. I don't know if any actual person would say that. I don't know how to make this sound not cringy as hell. And I don't do super mean audios or mean characters or super I don't know. Like I love audios where people are mean to me. I can't do it.
So in a way, it's like we
I'm just like,
or like not,
nope.
not really sympathize, more like empathize with the listener. It's like we it's easier to be the listener.
I'm
in
just
this
like,
case.
no, please.
But yes, thank you for all of these answers. Next up, we have another question from Turtle Shark. This one is for our VAs. Is there a type of character you've always wanted to play but could never find a script for? And this was actually kind of in reference to the current event that's going on right now. We only have a few days left, but we do have an event going on the server where VAs can ask for writers to come up with scripts that they just cannot find content for. So our first person is Not.
Well, I could be here all day going over that. Considering I have enjoyed playing let's see, a baker talking to a loaf of bread. I do enjoy playing sentient objects. I've wanted to voice farm implements, so like scythes, combines, and so on. I have enjoyed trying to find scripts that are various forms of giant creatures, as well as various forms of tiny creatures. Creatures from various mythologies. I was hoping I could find one where I'd play a turtle that's also an island. There's a lot of things that I really would like to come across. Mainly, I think what it is that it's very difficult to know what to search for, to look for these things. Again, going back to why I like browsing master lists, because sometimes as I'm scrolling through, I'll find something where the writer has no idea how to tag what they've created, but it's on that list. And if I click into it, because the tags are just so very strange, I can come across some of the most fantastic scenarios. Or, really, I also like scripts where you play characters that work against their archetype. So, I think that quite often I've enjoyed it when I've gotten to play dragons who are a bit sort of lost in space, as it were, or confused. Ooh, Space Dragon would be another thing that would be fantastic to play. A big space dragon coming in from other planets. Anyway, like I said, I could go on all day about that, but really, anything and everything, all kinds of characters are ones that I am fascinated by.
Interesting that you mentioned like the mythologies. We also have one of our events that focuses on that, though it's more we might change it up this year, but we had an event last year where we took like several different types of creatures and people could basically be put in a randomizer to come up with a script idea or do an audio for a particular type of creature, and I think we could do some more interesting stuff with that. We could also ask for people to make suggestions about what types of creatures to add, because we had some interesting ones last time that I remember seeing that actually ended up doing pretty well, either through the algorithm or over on Scripthaven. But we'll see, I guess, next time. That would be an interesting, I guess, place to bring that up if you're still interested. So,
Oh, you know I will.
our next person is Man of Culture.
So I touched on this earlier, I believe, but I so basically, for the longest time, there were characters I wanted to play that I couldn't play, but as of the last few weeks, with me being writing a lot of my own scripts, I've been able to just do whatever I want. You know, I got a I watched Nightmare on Elm Street the other day. Bam, wrote a Freddy Krueger style audio that's coming out Monday. Hey, I love Adam and Loot as characters. Bam, I wrote a role play. I just I basically been able to just do any characters I want, because it used to be I just had to hope, or I just had to go through and see if I could find anything similar on Scripthaven. But now I can just do whatever I want basically, and I feel great about it. Like, I watched X-Men 97 and then just wrote an X-Men script. I'm feeling good. I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm having a good time.
I mean, yeah, like in a way, sure. But I mean, that's something that I would like, I guess, to bring up to other VAs. And some, unfortunately, they won't write their own scripts, like whether like they just don't have the time for it, or they just don't feel that they're able to convey what they want. But I mean, it's great for those VAs who are able to pull that off. And I think, again, going back to one of our other questions, or at least one of the things that I brought up before, is like it helps a lot, like reducing the burnout, because you're doing things that you want to do. And unfortunately, you're not always going to find the content that you want over on Scripthaven or Talking Tall Tales or wherever people post their scripts. Sometimes you kind of just have to go for it yourself. You gotta be the one that drives that, I guess, concept forward, and put it out there to the people.
I think I mentioned, I believe on the first podcast I was ever on, I think I mentioned something about wanting to do a Jekyll and Hyde script.
Yes, and I made you one way back when.
Yeah, and you did, and it was great. I had another one of those things because I wanted to do a Yandere Renfield style assistant, ex Dracula listener. So basically, I chained up the listener because they never noticed me, and I spent years, seeing them drink from their victims. They never drank from me. It's like a whole thing. Honestly, I've had so much fun writing scripts, but I kind of want to mention it's given me a new appreciation for writers, because this is hard, but it's fun.
It is. And
it takes
really
hours.
Takes a while, yes. And I know everybody has their own approach. I know Esme, let's go bring up Esme writing the book version of one of your old script series. And I saw that you did like thousands of words in a day. I'm like, how do you do that? It's just crazy.
I have no chill. Like, literally, I started writing Boy with the Scars 3 weeks ago and was like, yeah, I'm gonna do 5K words a week on this, and there's 40,000 words. And I'm so tired. And then I started writing Misconnections, the novel, and I desperately need coffee.
I mean, hey, if you have the inspiration to do that, I mean, yeah, I admire people who can do that. I mean, I'm the type of person where with my scripts, I'm like, it's 200 words a day. That's all I can do.
You know what? Every goal is valid. As long as you don't have a 0 day, then you're good.
Yeah, I try not to have 0 days, but I'm also working on other projects too. So it's not just my scripts. It's like I have other things that I do.
I get it.
So, but as long as we can get that content out, I mean, hey, it works out. But anyway, let's move on to the next person. Bun is next, or the last person on this.
Oh man. I would like to play an absolute, like, deep dive, like, not like a vampire, not like a werewolf, not like an echo, but like absolutely bottom of the barrel magical creature. Somebody write me a Scylla script. Hi, I've been obsessed with Epic the Musical. I want to be Scylla. Thank you. Or like an indifferent goddess. Not like you're my favorite mortal. No, 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 no. I want somebody to pray to me and be like, ugh, fine. Bzz. I think that would be funny.
It's really funny
Ah,
because I have a series like that. I actually do.
send it to me. Send it to me.
All right, let me do that. Well, actually, what's the next question? Or once we move on, but it's funny because I got a film for that recently.
Yeah, send it
It's
to me.
been
Send
like
it to
a
me.
hot minute.
But I want to be an absolute deep dive niche fantasy creature.
Like,
Like,
but it's more like it's my evil god series, like that one who just kind of zaps their own
it's just
people who
like,
worship.
ugh, fine, whatever. You gave me food, whatever. Go away. Because, like, what is an ant to a boot? Yeah, that's the niche I want. I want to be the absolute nichest fantasy creature in the world. I don't even have to be a sexy fantasy creature. I want to be scary.
Well, this is the series for you. Look at this one. I'll link it over in the chat.
Please, please. Echo is AWOL due to medical reasons. Somebody write me a Scylla script.
It's not a solo script, but it is a.
I want to play a sea monster.
Unfortunately, not a sea monster. I'll post it here in the chat. The series.
Yes, love that. Oh my god, you're the best. Okay, yeah, that's what I want.
Okay. So, anyways, let's move on to our next question. These are from Skittles, who also joined us as a previous podcast member. This is for our writers. Who is a VA you've always wanted to work with? And our first person is Esme.
Oh, good. I had to think about it, and really, I've gotten to work with so many wonderful people, and I'm super duper thankful for that. No questions asked. If I had to pick anyone, I guess Cardlin. Just he seems like a super duper chill and cool dude, and I would be honored to have him perform one of my scripts at the end of the day. That's the best answer I have. Really, I'm always just grateful for anybody to fill any of my scripts, really.
I remember when Cardlin was like huge back in the day. So that would be an interesting.
He seems very nice.
Okay. Where are we? My next person is Timeraft.
Like Esme said, I'm usually pretty happy working with just about anybody. But and it's kind of embarrassing because she's in the chat, but I'm a big fan of Bun, and I've always kind of wanted to work with her. But
Oh
that's
shit,
about the only
DM me?
Yes.
DM me? Like we can make it happen. We can make it happen, Pookie.
All right.
And next up is GoldenProxy.
Like Esme said, I've been quite lucky to have a lot of very talented voice actors actually do my scripts. I did used to have like a list of like VAs I kind of was really hoping would do one of my scripts eventually, and that list has actually gotten very short now. There's only like 2 or 3 left, but I think if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Fearless Lynn, but I think she's stopped doing those now. So what can you do?
Unfortunately, sometimes you're like, oh, I think this VA would really like my work, and then they just stop.
Yeah,
it's an unfortunate fact, but hey, we'll have more VAs come into our lives, and we'll be like, that's someone I want to work with.
Absolutely.
And lastly, we have not.
This is a very difficult question, actually, because first off, a lot of the VAs who would like to have film my work already have. So that is one piece of it. The other is that I actually really personally enjoy a lot of the smaller channels doing the scripts. They're actually quite it's actually quite nice, I think, to see when a new channel wants to make their first go of it using one of your scripts. So I don't know if I have any. I don't know how many big name channels there are that I really hope for. I actually really enjoy, again, just helping people to get started on their journey into the VA space. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who I would say. Some of my favorite VAs are unfortunately folks who've retired, or at the very least haven't posted in a long time. So that's rather tricky.
Yeah, unfortunate sometimes. We sometimes lose out on a lot of really talented people, but again, people kind of just decide, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore, or just stop for whatever reason. But like I said, we'll find more talented people. I mean, there's probably like a lot of people that haven't even started yet that we might want to work with once they join us. So who knows? You could be the next person on one of our panelists lists. But yes, let us move on to the next Skittles question. And this is for VAs. If you could make any video you wanted algorithm be hacked, what would it be? Back to not again.
Oh goodness, I think I do make a lot of videos that are algorithm be hacked. I guess I would say that I would like to make just more videos that are a series of shorter one-offs. The algorithm sort of prefers some of the longer content, I think, and it also prioritizes popular keywords and popular scenarios, the ones that you see all the time. The things that I really enjoy are when the video is just so off the wall that nobody's quite sure how to even describe it after the fact. Where you watch the performance, you like the performance, and then you try to describe it to somebody, and you just sound insane. Those are the kinds of videos that I would like to make much more often. Actually, quite a few horror scenarios I think would be very, very fun, especially the ones that sort of have unreliable narrators or really make you question about who is the bad guy in the script, or are these scripts actually part of the same world? I think live recording is the closest I've really come to making this style.
Honestly, I can, I guess, piggyback off of that annoyance and say, yes, unreliable narrators are a lot of fun. They're very hard to write, I feel, sometimes. But
Very much so.
if you can pull it off well enough, I think they can be very interesting and you can have some really cool plot twists in your story. And make your listeners go like, what? It's like, I didn't realize this is what was going on the whole time. Next up is Bun.
Oh boy. There was one video I did that I loved where I was literally I was recording it was me playing Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, but it was me pretending to be your girlfriend and you sit in her lap while she plays Ocarina of Time, and I loved it. It was so fun. I got to play a game. I got to do my little slice of life cutesy shit, and it performed terribly. So I haven't done it again. But I want to because it was so fun. And a fun fact, the um having to sync up the audio and the video of everything hard. So if I ever do it again, I need to find an easier way to do that. But that I would just be a gaming ASMR channel. That was so fun.
I would say that would be the perfect time to do an improv, honestly.
That's what I did. That's what I did. It was great. It was so much fun. I got to play games and make a video at the same time. I loved it.
I feel
But
like
I'm also not good at video games.
I feel like I've seen like some people get some really good success. I mean, Fuyuki actually would be a really interesting person to ask for, because I know he's actually had a couple of audios where he's playing something in the background and it ended up being like super popular.
Yeah,
So,
there are like one or two, mostly male VAs I've noticed. I don't listen to a lot of female VAs,
Mhm.
so I'm not saying this as like a definitive, but I haven't seen a female VA do it
I guess that's
in my
another thing
limited
too. Like,
experience.
I guess like something that's more common, I guess, is the gamer boyfriend or whatever. Like, and so you kind of
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's a lot more typical, I feel, than like the gamer girlfriend. But I'm like, you could
Yeah.
definitely do it.
And I'm not wanting to like make a gamer girlfriend like e-girl thing, which I think is if there is a niche for gamer girlfriend content, it is that. And no, I just want to be a gremlin.
Like, I just want to
So
complain
yeah,
at
that's my
screen
answer.
and talk about the lore of the game.
Please, please. And I also made another video where it was your girlfriend rants about Taylor Swift for 16 minutes straight, and again, performed terribly. Loved doing it. I just want hi, I want to be a video essayist. Can you tell?
I mean, again, sprinkle it in
So,
between different content, I
little
feel like that's a nice way to do
sprinkle,
it.
sprinkle. Yeah, just let me talk your ear off about Legend of Zelda lore for an hour and a half. Thank you very much. Okay, bye.
And lastly, we have mana culture.
Hello. Actually, okay, I don't know if this counts, but there was an idea I had for a classic cheesy like 1980s slasher film, And I've actually recently got it into production. Now, I don't think it's going to do bad with the algorithm, but I know it's going to get demonetized 100%. It's kind of like a mini movie, like a 40-minute audio where like the listener is the final girl running around listening to each of the other characters get killed in various ways. And everything, but it's a classic cheesy like 1980s horror movie slasher. But I know that is going to damn well get demonetized 100% because that is just that is a lot of sound effects and that is a lot of blood. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do for a while.
I was gonna say, like, at that point, like, you just post it over on, like, on your own Reddit or something. Just be like, NSFW tag or whatever.
Well, it's like 6 VAs. I still need to get 2 more, but
I think I saw that over in the server. Like, you're reaching out to
Yeah.
people about it. I'm like, that's crazy.
I kind of wrote it in a night because I was so enthralled with the idea that I put on the Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2 for inspiration on a cheesy 80s film, and then I just spent the entire night and I got like 7,000 words.
Gotta do the Esme thing. just going for it,
I don't know. I just had one of those moments where it was like tunnel vision, like a kid on Adderall. I was just going crazy for like 8 hours. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty cool.
Honestly, I would like to see you all do these things. It'd be fun. Kind of, again, like, it's unique. It's something different, and I think it's a nice way to show a VA's passion for their work, like, to do something like that. Instead of just doing, like, the same old, same old. Unfortunately, even if the algorithm just says no. But anyways, let us move on to our next question, which is the only one that was for a specific person on the list. And it's back to mana culture again from Alert Prize 7554.
Okay, I'm popular. I'm great. Thanks.
Will you make more Alistair audios?
Oh.
Yes, no, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, sorry. I thought I didn't properly hear you, so I didn't think that was
sorry.
the question.
Yeah, it's for
Okay,
you.
my bad. Yeah, well, I think I know who this came from because there's like this one person that's like stalked every video for the past 3 months and it's like Alistair Part 3, Alistair Part 3. And even during the premiere of Alistair Part 4, they were like Alistair Part 5. But yeah, I definitely will. I have plans. It's gonna be a whole universe in itself, you know. I'm gonna do Angel Dust audios that are gonna connect to it, you know, and then obviously Husker audios, Lucifer, pretty much bring in all the characters. It's gonna be a whole thing, it's basically at this point just a glorified fan fiction that people are liking. So yeah, you know, it's gonna be real fun. But yeah, yeah, I will definitely do more has-been content, and especially on Alistair, because people really love simping for Alistair.
I just kind of want to put it out there. I mean, even though you say, like, yeah, I want to do this content, please don't try to pressure your VAs into doing more content, by the way. Especially, like, because I've seen this happen a lot with other VAs, too. Even with ones where they don't even have control over the content itself, because, you know, you have a lot of people asking, like, part 2, part 2, part 3, part 4, whatever, of a series that the VA didn't even write, you know? So, I mean, it not only puts pressure on the VA, but also the writer sometimes if it's a public script.
Honestly.
So, please, please don't do that. I mean, I get it. Like, some people feel flattered by it, but I mean, like, just, I think it adds a lot of
Please,
unneeded
I
pressure.
am not the person to harass.
Please don't harass the
It
writers.
was bothersome for a bit.
Don't direct your ire anywhere, but if you're going to have ire anyways, wrong person.
But yeah, it's like we have our own things in mind for scripts or audios, and I mean, if somebody wants to do more, you know, like more power to them, but sometimes, you know, enough is enough, right? Anyways, let us move on to GoldenProxy's question, who was here in the chat. I don't even know if you want to answer your own questions, but we'll do that.
I do have an answer ready, but I don't have to.
I mean, it's fine. I'll still bring you up with this. Can the randomizer please give me something different? I keep getting the same people on top. Oh my gosh. Okay. Come on, randomizer. You gotta do something a little different. Okay. I guess we're doing this. So VAs, do you have different ways of preparing for different types of characters / roles? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Bun is first.
Hi. Depends. Sometimes if it's a series, I will go back and I will listen to my earlier videos to like get back into the character. And then other times I will take a shot at the opening lines a couple different times with a couple different like I don't really do a lot of different voices. It's all just me. But I will take a couple shots in like different intonations and stuff and then see how best it fits. I really like when when script dials will be like, "Hey, this is like a sweeter, bouncier character," or more, or "Do a goth dobby mommy now." Like, I like that kind of direction. It makes my life a little bit easier.
Okay, so you like it when the scriptwriter kind of has a note, kind of talking about.
Yeah, like not like ridiculously specific. Like don't be like, I want you to sound like but just like a, hey, this is a bouncier, happier character. Hi, Milo.
Okay.
Or stuff like that. But yeah, that's my answer. Hi, Milo.
Does Milo want to be an honorary podcast member?
Oh, he's the mascot of the channel. Like all of my hi baby.
Oh, we had him now.
My blooper audios, 90% of them are just me going, Milo.
We've got to have those. You know,
Okay,
I was
that's
actually bringing this up recently with one of my VAs who added bloopers to the yada yada. I'm like, I want more VAs to do that, honestly. I want to see the bloopers.
I I've been putting my bloopers on Patreon only, just like because people, I don't know if people actually like to listen to them. So
I
it's just
do.
like a little bonus video. I might put the next one once I have more than like 2 or 3 minutes um as a YouTube video.
That's an
I
idea
maybe
for
to
other
play around
videos.
with some dumb editing.
But yes,
I think that'd be fun. But yeah,
from a writer to
that's my answer.
VAs. From a
I
writer to
know.
VAs, you guys got to do more of it. I would love to hear.
I'm gonna turn off my mic so I can give the boys some attention.
That's fine. Okay, so Maniculture is next.
Well, for one thing, it kind of depends for me. Like most of the time, it's like it's music. Sometimes I watch a movie. Like if I'm doing a yandere, I'm dead. If I'm doing a yandere in particular, I'll probably just listen to some Scream Ghostface AMV and be like, "All right, I am a killer. I'm a psychopath. I'm hunting and stalking my victim. This is who I am." Basically, I just because whenever I record, I listen to music and with my earbuds as I record because because music can really affect my mood and what character I'm portraying. Basically, like I can't tell you how many times I had like if I have had to do villains before. How many times when I was being a villain, I listened to Carol by the Bells, the Joker AMV, because it just put me in that whole like mindset of like, all right, I want to cause mayhem and misery just for the sake of chaos. I want to be the world's joke. I want to be the thing they think about when they think of fear. You know, honestly, it's music mostly for me. I listen to music whenever I record, whenever I do anything. I've been listening to music through this whole podcast, like really upbeat songs to keep the vibe going. But yeah, you know, music really affects me. Sometimes, especially if I'm looking for inspiration, like when I'll watch horror movies. I'll just read fan fictions, you know, just stuff, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm in that character's headspace. I'm like the generalized notion of what they would be, you know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this helps, but yeah.
It did. Thank you.
I think that actually applies to writers too. Like sometimes we'll just put on music to get into a certain vibe for a specific scene. Sometimes I'll even put on like, you know, those what are they called? Not the 24-hour, but like the several hour ambiance sound
Yes,
effects, like for a long
I always
time.
listen to that.
Oh yeah.
That's
I
actually a
always
really
listen.
good way to get into a mood for a scene.
I believe I mentioned earlier that when I was writing because when I was writing the whole like sorority slasher 1980s thing, I was the whole time I was I had in the background two of like the cheesiest worst 1980s slasher films I've ever seen in my life. uh, but they were so bad they were good and I loved it.
That's honestly a lot of fun. It's like for me, like I don't like answering these questions because it just kind of puts more time on the live stream. But I kind of wanted to bring up that like I always like I don't know if it's just me, but I always find it difficult to concentrate when there's words being said in the background, whether it's through music or just anything. I guess it's just because like since I'm a writer, I'm trying to think of specific words on my end, and then this is distracting to me.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But yeah,
with
it
that.
can't be
needs to
too long.
wordless.
I listen to a lot of sports documentaries. I don't even really like sports.
Anyway, this is less about me. Let's move on. So Not is next.
Well, I'll say that there are certainly some commonalities between the ways that I'll prepare for characters, but yes, generally, I would say that for any character, it takes me a little bit of time to get into the right headspace. And my method is just reading lines. So I'll usually go through the script, try to find a line or two that I really feel embody the character well, and I will read them over and over and over in various voices just sort of working myself into the role. Then oftentimes I'll also sometimes read through the script, occasionally all the way to the end. And then I will do that 2 or 3 more times until I feel comfortable that I really have it down. But really, doing voices is one of the best things, I think. It helps me feel like I'm, in the character's mind, doing the things that they would be doing. Having props is also fantastic. So, for example, one of the recent performances I've given, I had a literal sword strapped to my side and a cloak slung over my back. That definitely helped get me into character, and I feel it reflected in the performance. So I would say if you're going to try to get into character or into a role, have fun, do some voices, dress up, wave some props around, and just play. Which is really my answer to a lot of these questions about how to be creative. Is just treat it like a fun game.
Unfortunately, I don't think everybody has a sword on them, but that'd be really cool.
Well, you
Just
could
to
grab a
have that,
ruler or a
honestly.
stick,
A
just
stick.
anything, really.
Grab a
Use
stick,
your
absolutely.
imagination.
I have a 3D printed Master Sword replica, and it is my prized possession.
Perfect.
I used Freddy Krueger's glove the other day.
A lot of fun stuff, honestly. Kind of need to embrace the inner child, I guess. Go back to the days of let's come up with all these crazy stories. But yes, let us move on to the second golden proxy question. Oh no, why does it say nice word? It's supposed to be. Just because let me redo this. Technical difficulties, guys.
Of course, it's my question. That's a difficult one.
No, it's because I reuse the templates from the previous podcast. There we go. It's fixed. Anyways, so for writers, how many parts would you say is too many for a series? Do you write with a number of parts in mind before approaching a series, or do you generally just go with the flow? Golden Proxy is first. I don't know if you want to answer your question.
I can do, yeah. So for me, it's just kind of it depends really. It's like sometimes I'll just write one. I'll go into a script playing it to be one, and then I'll really like writing the character, and I'll be like, ooh, I want to write more of them, and then or I'll get more ideas for the story as I'm going through, and it'll just come completely out of nowhere. And sometimes I'll go into a series like this will probably be like 2 or 3 parts, or like I'll already know that going in. So it depends sometimes.
I'm gonna wonder if anyone does my method, but we'll see when we get to the end. So Esme is next.
I think I'm of the agreement that it kind of really depends on context and what you're wanting to ultimately do with the story. I know I've hit some pretty long series before and definitely gotten made fun of for it, but honestly, that was just kind of the length that felt right at the time. But I will say, as a benchmark, I think most stories that aren't like high fantasy and sci-fi can be told within 10 parts fairly coherently if you're willing to cut down. So that might be a good baseline if you're worried about going over, I think.
We had this conversation earlier on. It's just like 10 parts with so many parts.
My longest one's been 7. That's been the maximum.
25, baby. 25.
Oh my God.
Yep.
We'll have different definitions of what is considered a long series.
Listen, there are some fan fictions that are like 1,000 chapters.
Oh my gosh,
right? I feel like I'm reasonable.
Yes, I've seen some fan fictions that go over like 1,000,000 words. I'm like, how do you do this? Just like
I'm not
I'm not
writing for the Lab House, okay? Let's still just 10 parts. 10 parts was fun.
It's like you're writing
Bro,
an entire
my
trilogy.
longest series is 7.
There's some wild stuff in there. Like at that point, I'm just like, write a book, please. Or write several books.
Well, maybe I am, and maybe I will.
We know that you are, Esme, at least.
Well, good. I don't know what I'm saying. The
You
coffee's
gotta
coming to
do
get
that
me.
as part of your shameless plug at the end, so everybody buys your book when it's published.
But they're not done yet. No, I'll try.
Alrighty. Next up is not.
Well, for me, I'm going to answer this two ways. As a VA, as many parts as it takes to tell the story in full. As a writer, and as a writer, 3 parts is 2 parts too many. I don't write series, and that's really because I feel most comfortable doing short stories. I think that in that sense, I do always write with a number of parts in mind, and that part is 1. uh, how long the script is varies quite a bit. Switching back to VA mode for a moment, something I also like to personally do that I know isn't necessarily super common is just to wait until a series is done and then record all of the parts at once in one continuous stretch and then turn them into one very long video. Which does confuse people, I've noticed. Folks are like, so when's part 2 coming out? I'm like, you got to see parts 1 through 5 already. that's already as far as I'm going. Yeah, so that would be the way I would answer this. I think that everyone sort of needs to decide for themselves how many parts is too many parts for them to be comfortable with. And as you can hear on one end, that's like 25 parts, and on the other end, there's literally just 1.
Honestly, I feel like I've seen that happen a lot with other VAs who do the compilations of series, and it's just like, when's the next part? I'm just like, guys, it's like all of these were several parts in one. It was not a singular part. But I mean, at the same time, like it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, like about Reddit, where it just kind of sucks to try to search for those scripts a lot of the time, and it's annoying to try to post the links in YouTube because sometimes like YouTube doesn't like that when you post a link to a script or whatever, and so it's
As
just
an
not
aside,
convenient.
as an aside, since this sort of reminded me of one of the audios that I do want to make, I have a goal of doing a 2.5-hour script in one take. I have no idea what script this will be because it doesn't exist yet. I think, but I am searching for a script that will let me do a full movie worth of performance in one go.
What about a
Just-
series of scripts? Would you be interested in a sci-fi bounty hunter series by any chance?
If I can go from one part to the next, yeah, I will totally try that.
I'm going to send it you now.
Okay, let's have a look.
Like the time where we're just sending each other a bunch of stuff as it's brought up. But yeah, I think that's probably the best way to go about it because like, I don't know how many people who actually write scripts that are that long unless they're multiple parts. And so you'd have to go like rapid fire between each of them, and that's a challenge. So, but anyway.
Can I
Yes.
give my opinion as a VA?
Yes.
Maximum 4 parts, please, I beg you. Unless it is like an anthology where you're like exploring the same characters, but they're not like all one plot, where it's like, if that makes sense.
Unfortunately, I sent you a 6-part series. So.
Honestly, hot indifferent god, fine. I'll hold my nose and do it. But yeah, that's
it's hard sometimes, especially when it comes down to pacing, because sometimes you can get things done in a certain number of parts, and then other times just like I need more parts to do this.
Like I will happily make a 40-minute audio if it's one part. But yeah. that's my 2 cents. Okay, bye.
Let's get back to writer opinions. Our last person here is Timeraft.
Yeah, I'm kind of with them. I think 3 is a good number. I used to have a no sequel rule, but I broke it a lot. But like I understand from like the VA perspective, like say you find some nice script that's like, oh, Goblin with a Southern accent, or something silly like that. And it's like, oh, there's a sequel, and there's another sequel, and there's another sequel. And before you know it, you're doing this like 9-part thing, and it ends with like them going back in time to World War II or something silly. And it's like, just try to keep everything in one script if you can, has generally been my attitude. I know that's hypocritical, but I have a lot of. When I write a sequel, it's usually just because I'm not happy with the first one. And I'm like, I need to make this, like, I need to wrap it up right. My longest series, the one with the dorky evil queen, is kind of just like a slice of life thing. I don't think anybody has to do that in any particular order. And even then, I think it's a little too long.
Maybe you would
But
be
yeah,
the
I think
perfect
like
writer for not. To write that 2-hour audio. Just have that singular story all in one.
oh god, I couldn't do that.
Listen, I like
I run
Timeraft
out of
scripts.
I run out of steam after like page 10.
But hey, like I said, whatever works out.
Thank you, not. But yeah, it's like generally it's like, and sometimes if you're thinking like, hey, this would be a good sequel for this character because this character's popular, it's like maybe just make that its own script. You don't have to reuse the same character because eventually, after like part 8, it's like, how did this even start? You see that with any franchise. It's not just like this stuff. Like, I mean, in the first Fast and the Furious movie, they were stealing VCRs, and now they're like on the moon. It's like, how did we get here? This should have been a different
Didn't
movie.
they also get superpowers?
I don't know, man. I stopped watching after 6. I remember there was a big rumor that he was going to show up in Infinity War, and I'm kind of sad it didn't happen. But
I would have died.
yeah, it would have been the
Oh.
perfect ending there. But anyways, that's just my thoughts on sequels.
I'm suddenly reminded of something.
Yes.
Since Rain Mimi, actually. The way that the Wonderland series, which I mentioned a little bit ago, was done was each of the different parts was written as if it was a standalone, but they all interconnect into a bigger story. So you can actually choose the order in which you choose to do them, as well as how many of them you do. And I've liked that immensely because it keeps me from feeling like I have this whole pile of them to do. And instead it's just like a bunch of times I get to revisit the same world. But they all actually seem to interlink into a bigger overall plot arc.
Yeah, shared worlds. Everything I said about series, I don't apply to that because I have like 6 shared worlds, and I think they're a lot of fun. It's like playing Fallout, where like I can play Fallout, and then I can play like the route where I join the different faction, but I'm not obligated to play a route where I'm like I have to do every single thing. I can come back whenever I want and do what I want to do.
You know what this would be perfect for? Like the dating sim type storylines where you just have a different character and like different routes in the same story. I think that's like the perfect medium for this.
There should be like a big, massive crossover where everybody just does a dating sim.
The big dating sim crossover. We have to come up with something though.
Yeah, like 12 writers, 12 VAs.
It's like I want to write the secret route with the villain. Honestly, I'd love doing that. That would be a lot of fun. I mean, we've had like the big collabs in the server. Like that might be something to consider at some point. But who knows? Anyways, I believe that was our last one for GoldenProxy. And these are our last 2 questions coming up. We're actually doing pretty good on time. So speaking of Rainy, we have 2 questions here. For our VAs, do you prefer filling series or one-shot scripts? Why? This kind of comes off of or the question in a way. So Maniculture is first.
Okay, so I was because of a question earlier, I started looking through my videos because I was curious what the longest one I ever done was, and I realized something. I've done maybe 3 series. I think all of them were written by ItsEsmeJones. But I'm slowly realizing that the other series I've done, I just did all the parts and just put them into one big video because I wanted to get the series over with, but I also thought it was like really good. Um, Honestly, I think I prefer just one-off scripts with open-ended endings. Because honestly, it just means if I want it to become a series, it can become a series. If I don't, then it's just a one shot, and it was a really good one shot. Um, I don't know if this answered the question, but this is what I got.
In a way, yeah. Like, I guess preferring, like, I guess more in this case, the one video, as opposed to necessarily, like, one shot versus series. Which again, I found some people tend to find success in that a little bit more, but others find it better, like, hey, let's do part 1, part 2, part 3 as separate videos. So I think I remember hearing from someone saying that sometimes it kind of messes with the algorithm having such long videos, just because people don't watch enough of the video. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Really?
but
Gotta
anyway.
stop doing that then.
I don't know. Like I said, it's what I've heard from other VAs. I don't know the truth behind it. I guess maybe we'll hear that from our VAs when we get to them. We'll see. Anyways, Not is next.
Well, I think I've already made my opinion on this one clear for myself personally. I prefer one shots just because I tend to get very distracted and I tend to be excited about a lot of new ideas, and one shots let me enjoy a lot more ideas all in one go. It's sort of like having a buffet. Just sample a little bit of everything, you know? That said, just so that folks listening don't get confused about it, series are actually really good. A lot of VAs do actually prefer series. May not be all the folks on this panel, but there are quite a few who have made it their bread and butter. What I understand, speaking of the algorithm and such things, is that series are actually much better for building a fan base that is very committed to coming back time and time again. I think it's a common knowledge amongst VAs that multiple parts tend to have diminishing views, but the viewers that you build through series tend to be more committed to the channel because they know that you're the VA who does the one thing that has the 50 parts in it, and they tend to like that. I'd also say that in terms of doing them all in one go versus in multiple parts, the algorithm rewards overall watch time. I don't want to get too far into the algorithm talk because that's always just quite a rabbit hole, and not in a good way. But overall watch time is what you care about most if you're focused on that side of things. So, if listeners are excited by a long video and they stick around for all of the different sections of it, that's great. If your listeners tend to have shorter attention spans or really can only listen to smaller parts of it, you may need to break things up. Exactly what is best is a thing that I think VAs across the board, all of us, really struggle to figure out what the optimal mix is. It's very, very, very difficult to understand and work with the algorithm unless that is practically your full-time job, which for some people it is.
Okay. I feel like I was gonna mention something that you said before, but thank you for answering that question. Just because I remember I heard it from somebody, I don't remember who, but yeah, that it was about rewarding the watch time, and you're not necessarily gonna say that. Oh, I think I remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, it was specifically about what you were saying regarding the fact that there's diminishing returns on multiple parts, and I kind of want to say that again, like I do like what you said there, where like you have those same people who like, it might not be like a big crowd that's rewatching them, but you do have those people coming back, even if it's like a smaller subset of your audience, just to see that series. And you can argue that even the writers too might be interested in coming back to your videos if you're the one, like that one VA who actually completes their series. Because I mean, like take it from a writer. I mean, like there's a lot of VAs who start series that I've written that just don't continue on. So I pay attention more to the ones that actually do complete my series. So you can kind of, I guess, bring that in as well. I mean,
Is this where I say don't at me?
but yes, I will say, at least from my perspective, that yes, at the very least, many writers will be very appreciative if you complete the series. Because, I mean, I don't think they would have written it if they didn't want to hear all of the parts, right? So, but yes, lastly, we have Bun.
It's weird because I like doing series, but like we said, there is diminishing return on sequels, which sucks because I will be so excited that a sequel for a script came out, and I will have people in the comments of part 1 being like, please make a part 2, please make a part 2, please make blah, 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 part 2, part 2, part 2. And I'm like, but are you gonna watch it though? So I oftentimes fill one shots. And then if it's something that if it's like a script that I'm really passionate about, like the whole series, I will do a series. But in general, I fill one shots, and then sometimes they get extended into series, which is fun. So yeah, that's my answer.
It's like, to all our listeners out there, please watch the other parts. They're just as good, if not better.
Especially if you were in my comments begging for a part 2, please.
Because I swear, like sometimes I'll see that and like I'm like, I didn't see you comment on the second video. Where are you?
I see you. Where you at? Please.
Alrighty. So we are on to our final question. And this is for our writers. Do you have anything you do to get in the zone before writing a script? We kind of had a similar question to this earlier, but it was for our VAs. So let's go through our list of writers this time. So Timeraft is first.
There's no like zone, you know, like if I'm being really productive, it kind of just randomly hit me. But I think I mentioned this before. I like listening to like documentaries in the background, especially if it's something I've already seen. I know that's kind of like Netflix user energy. I listen to music a lot, but usually I stick to like the same 3 albums. Like you'd probably name them. I listen to V by Spock's Beard, Wasteland of Wonderland by Patty and the Rats, and geez, what's the third one? That one Springsteen album where he's like got the guy with the saxophone on the cover. I can't remember what it's called. And if you read my scripts, you probably notice that I reference music a lot, because I'll hear like a good lyric and I'm like, I'm just gonna make that dialogue. Who's gonna sue me? But yeah, that's what I do. Because I'm a psycho.
Not really. I mean, again, like we did talk about it earlier, where it's like, hey, like sometimes music helps, right? I mean, it gets you pumping to write certain scripts, or it gets you into a specific mood, right? But yes, next up we have GoldenProxy.
So for me, I never really get into the zone. I just tend to work up enough courage to actually start typing words onto the page. What I'll do sometimes is I'll just leave my laptop on so that I know that I need to use it, and I'll take my dogs out for a walk, or I'll just sit at the I'll just sit at my computer and just kind of set a time for myself. I'll be like, right, I'm going to start writing in 5 minutes, and that just kind of lets me get kind of gets my head in the right kind of mindset and that sort of thing. It takes a while sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of relate in a sense. Well, I mean, more so in the sense that it's like, well, I don't always necessarily listen to music, I guess, for mine. It can take a little bit longer sometimes, in that case, but you know, whatever works out. But yes, next up we have Esme.
Well, so I do something a little unconventional, I guess, which I know is probably shocking for me. Please forgive me, audience. What I do is when I start writing is I try to match like the cadence of how the character is going to talk to kind of synthesizer music. I use GSN Composer to kind of chart out the rate at which they speak. And then I basically just use the kind of genre slash song to sort of fill in how they would speak. Like for more aggressive characters, it's usually kind of slower paced rap songs, but sometimes with hyper characters, it's like anime themes and everything. So I kind of write by music before character, if that makes any sense. And that usually gets me into the zone to just get the script going and done.
I guess in that case, it feels more like inspiration. As opposed to necessarily getting into like the zone of actually writing itself.
Kinda sorta, yeah. Like I'm almost always like in the zone by proxy of just the joys of autism and bipolar mania and everything. So the music is really just to kind of launch into writing mode more than anything. But it does help. Like composing music to match to how somebody's like cadence rolls out is actually been something that's been very useful for me.
That's kind of an interesting way, I guess, to look at it.
I warned you. I warned you.
Might want to try it one day, who knows. And lastly, our final answer will come from Not.
Well, I will say that I actually have to do quite a few things to get into the zone for writing a script. I will start by saying that I struggle to get started with doing most things, but once I'm doing them, I really end up getting on a roll. So what I will say is, talking to other people and bouncing ideas off of them is often what gets me to actually try to do something. In terms of writing a script, this means that I will talk about the ideas that I like, often in the Discord, for example. And I'll just start rambling on, and then it just starts flowing. I can start writing dialogue because I'm imagining it all in my head, and there's some audience to present to. It's also why I like performing in front of a test audience. It just helps me feel like I am, I guess, in the zone to do it. The second thing that I'll say as far as getting in the zone is that I usually think of most creative tasks as being like starting up a steam engine. It takes a lot of just slow, continuous movement before you've built up enough momentum to really get underway. And for me, this means in writing that I'll write a bunch of garbage before I actually start writing anything useful. It's sort of like getting all the smoke out. So I'll just write random lines, random dialogue, unrelated comedy scripts, little snippets of this or that. And eventually I'll sort of get into the right space where I feel like I'm in the place where I want to write something, and the words just start to flow much, much better. So I would recommend that to a lot of folks. Just start writing, even if it's terrible. And eventually, your brain will sort of just shift over into writing mode because you're in the middle of writing. And I think the other thing that I would suggest is uh, find the things that sort of inspire you to write and keep them around you. So, music certainly is one way to go about it, but I sometimes just find interesting objects or photographs that make me feel like there's an emotional response. And then I'll just keep them around me while I'm writing, and I'll just look over at them every now and then. So sometimes this is very simple. It can be like, I found a random piece of metal one day, and it was just the most fascinating shape. And so I just kept staring at it as I was writing, because it just gave me the sense of like um, sort of industrial loss. And that was helpful for sort of thinking about dystopian society. So I like that quite a bit. I think, too, that depending upon the type of script you're writing, you kind of want to set up your environment to reflect that. I found that actually, in many cases, it's easier for me to write certain scripts on my phone. And I don't know why. It certainly takes more time, but I just find the words flow better. Whereas other scripts, sometimes the slice of life ones, I like writing on bigger documents, like larger pages. It just feels right. So I'm a very field-based writer in that respect. I like to go with the flow on it, but I like to sort of go down the water slide of flow.
And that's another interesting take. There's a lot of things that I never would have expected to hear. Just because, again, like, we all have our own specific things that inspire us. I mean, I won't go into mine because this is not my time to shine. I've talked about this plenty on other podcasts, but again, it is interesting to see all the different examples of how we get to where we want to be when we want to start writing. But anyways, that was in fact our final question. And I want to thank you all. It's getting cut off, unfortunately, but thank you all for coming. Again, it was very nice to have you all back. It's been a long time since some of you were here. Again, it's been a year since at least 2 of you were here. So I'm like, I didn't even know what was going on with some of you.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Like,
Nice.
I haven't even kept up with like half of you. So unfortunately, I'm like, I don't know what you guys are doing. Like, I just sent out a ping to everybody. I'm like, I know you guys were on the podcast. You want to join? It's like, I haven't talked to you in like a year. But yeah, it's like nice to be in the loop again, I guess. But again, like I said, I'm very glad to have had you all here. It was a pleasure. If you want to use this time to, do your shameless plugs, now is when you should. Should I go down a list, or let's just like rapid fire if people throw out stuff? I don't know.
Shameless plug. I'm changing my channel name in a month and my entire brand.
Are you really?
That out. No, I actually am.
Okay.
From man of culture to fable frequencies.
Interesting. Guess we'll keep an eye out for that.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Anyone else have a shameless plug?
Yes.
I have a coffee. Oh, go on.
I beat you.
So, yep. 5 seconds.
I have YouTube, I have Patreon for spicy content, and then I have a Ko-Fi where I am currently raising money to go see my sick boyfriend. Or you can commission me. I will do most things for enough money. Just don't be weird about it. That's it.
Guess we're going on GoldenProxy next, right?
Okay. So I have a Reddit where I post my scripts, and I have a Coffee as well where you can commission me to write scripts as long as it's not too weird, like Foster Bunny said. So yeah, give me money.
Give us all money.
Just give you money.
Yeah, please.
Please,
I
I'm
love
poor.
it.
I live in America.
So I guess we have our last two. Who goes first?
Screw it, I'll go. Yep, I have a Reddit where I post all of my scripts with my script directory. I also have a Ko-Fi, whatever, that thing. And I also do commissions. You can be weird It's fine. But just like respectfully weird, if you wouldn't mind too much. Gotta balance out the weird. But yep, that's pretty much it for me.
Timeraft, would you like to do a shameless plug?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a Reddit where I post all my stuff. Questions are open. Just DM me before you buy one on Ko-fi, coffee, whatever it's called. Because I'm kind of picky about what I do. Not like I don't like some things, but some things I just don't think I could write. But yeah, just hit me up if you want a script, and be safe out there.
Again, thank you all for joining
Yes,
us.
please. DM before the
Please.
weird shit.
Yes, please go support
Yes, please DM.
everyone here. Also go support Fuyuki as well because he wasn't able to join us for the end.
And
Please
go look at Blue Scripts.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have a Ko-fi or not.
I used to. I got rid of it. I have a throne.
Oh,
if anyone
nice.
wants
Go
to-
buy Oh yeah,
buy
I
me
also
gifts.
have a throne. Go buy blue merch.
Kneel
I
before
have
the
several
throne.
things
Blue
on there.
merch.
Go buy me things. Go buy me Miku figures, and I will be in your debt.
Me.
And thank you to
Miku
all of our
figures.
listeners for being here. It was a pleasure to have you all here again. I can't say for certain when we're having our next podcast, but we will let you all know when that's happening, and we will be doing our we're going to be bringing on several more people. We actually do have at least 2 people for sure that are going to be on the next podcast because they were actually supposed to be on podcast 5 and we're unable to make it, so they're going to be guaranteed people. But if you're interested in actually joining us for the podcast, again, we will take anybody as long as you're active and don't have any, oh my gosh, I can't even think right now. It's been like 3 hours already. If you don't have any, like warnings in our Discord server, and if you want to know what the Discord server is, we actually have it, linked on the main or the front page of this channel. It is the ASMR Script Guild. If you would like to join as a possible member of the next podcast series, I will be pretty upfront about when we're bringing in new people, so please make sure to join us there. But yes, again, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you all at the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I get to go to bed now.
Have a good night's sleep.
Oh, she's gone. Bye, everyone.
Oh, that was really fast. Okay,
Yes,
I guess I'll go too.
I tried to make sure that it was fast. But thank you all.